time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott's here. Richard Campbell's back from his visit to England. We're going to talk about Windows 11. Microsoft's got a new way to kind of trick you into upgrading, something you might want to watch out for. Intel's earnings fall off a cliff, but they've got a better way than firing people to make money back. And we'll take a look at .NET MAUI and desktop applications for Windows. That and a whole lot more coming up next on Windows Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell, episode 814, recorded Wednesday, February 1st, 2023. Dump Truck Fade. Windows Weekly is brought to you by Miro. Miro is your team's visual platform to connect, collaborate, and create together. Tap into a way to map processes, systems, and plans with the whole team and get your first 3 boards for free to start creating your best work yet at Miro.com/podcast. And by Melissa. Over 10,000 clients worldwide in industries like retail, education, healthcare, insurance, finance, and government rely on Melissa for full-spectrum data quality and ID verification software. Make sure your customer contact data is up to date. Get started today with 1,000 records cleaned for free at melissa.com/twit. And by Drata. Too often, security professionals are undergoing the tedious, arduous task of manually collecting evidence. With Drata, say goodbye to the days of manual evidence collection and hello to automation, all done at Drata speed. Visit drata.com/twit to get a demo and 10% off implementation. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show where we get together and talk about Windows and Microsoft in general with these two cats right here. On your left, Paul Thurrott, Thurrott.com, and of course, leanpub.com for his books. On your right, from Run As Radio and .NET Rocks, Mr. Richard Campbell. Hello, Richard. Hello, Paul. Good day to you, sirs.
Hello.
Hi.
Richard, you were in London.
I was in London last week, yes, and speaking at a conference and recording a few run-ases, trying to stay out of trouble.
Did you have fun?
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you see the king?
No King Chuck to be seen. Yeah, that much hasn't changed.
Yeah, I'd like to see Chuck. I would. I'd like to see him in all his regalia. But
yeah, there's going to be a coronation at some point. I'm sure it'll be a thing.
I think it's a couple of months. I think it
will be in
March
the news
or April. It will be in the news. Yeah.
Yep.
Paul is in his basement again, but you've added some decor. Well, not really. Sorry.
Yeah.
It looks the same. No cat.
Well, the cat's on the bed. She's enjoying herself over there.
There you go.
That's all that matters. Microsoft news. Let's get right into it. Should we start with Windows 11?
Yeah, why not?
What's news?
Well, Leo, I'm glad you asked. The Windows 11 update is not going so well, or upgrade, I should say, for Microsoft. So now they're going to ram it down our throats.
Nice.
Yeah, and there's a couple of different ways of doing this. The first is they've announced that they're going to just automatically update to Windows 11 on non-managed PCs, meaning PCs run by individuals, right? So that's going to happen. The other thing, and this is the most beautiful Microsoft thing of all Microsoft things, people are starting to take screenshots of their, their computer screen, because I guess you can't screenshot this part of it. It's during setup. And they're being told they need to upgrade to Windows 11. And there are 2 buttons. It says OK or do it later.
Those are your choices.
And those are the choices.
There's no never, huh? Cancel this.
Well, actually, Microsoft, there's a little link at the bottom. You have to really look for it. And it kind of says something like, click here to stay on Windows 10 or whatever.
So it's not just pushing to 22H2. It is getting you off of 10.
They're doing both, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am days away from building a couple of new PCs.
Yep.
And, I'm prone to 10 because I like my taskbar on the left. But I don't know if it's going to let me.
Well, you can configure Windows 11 to put it on the left.
They always say that, but is that really the right answer? You know? Oh, if
You know
that's
what?
all you're worried about. Isn't there
Well-
stuff in Windows 11 that is also like the centered taskbar?
Yeah.
Going to be bad for
round,
Mr. Campbell here.
You can't turn off the rounded corners. You know, that might be an issue.
And you get the search pill.
Yeah.
You get the widgets where the start button used to be.
Yep. Yeah. Look, in my experience, because I've done this a lot and I've been kind of freaked out at how inconsistent it is. If you download the ISO from Microsoft, they actually do a pretty good job of keeping it up to date. Like you don't go back to October or whatever. I don't know. If you want to, I mean, if you want to stay in Windows 10, you can. Of course, you can download that ISO as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're going to pester you. You know, you only have like 2.5 years.
It's kind
now,
of
right?
annoying. Yeah, this is kind of annoying. So you're going to see okay or do it later, and then at the bottom of that dialog box, in a somewhat low contrast font,
That's right.
it's going to
Like
say
a 1-point font. There'll be a little link.
Blue on blue.
I want to stay with Windows 10.
Yeah.
So, you know,
I want to make bad choices.
right. So my understanding is that this is probably like that screen you might see sometimes when you reboot and it says, hey, let's finish setting up, even though you have finished setting up.
Right.
And you can say, yeah, just remind me in 3 days. And then it just reminds you the next time you reboot, which is typically because you've installed some update that requires it. And I always just click through. I never want to go through that. I just don't care. Like, I don't care what you want me to do. I'm not doing it. I'm just going to skip it. And I think it's that.
You're
kind
here
of
to
a
serve me, for crying out loud. Like,
This feels like a dark pattern, though. I mean,
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
it feels like they're really trying to trick people into going to Windows 11, and some percentage of people will just say, okay.
That's right. I wrote the first Delphi app I ever wrote was like this. It was like you try to click the button on the dialog and the dialog would move.
You're
as you
the
try
one
to
who did
click.
that. I hate
I guess
that.
today we call that a dark pattern. But, you know, kind of like spell checking is AI, I guess.
Did you do it for the lulls, Paul? Is that why you did that?
Well, I was just doing it to test Delphi.
Yeah.
See.
Can I keep the button away from the mouse?
that's it.
That's
The
right.
cancel button that runs away.
That's right.
It's a classic. Always funny.
As you go to click on them, they actually flip positions, so you click on them.
Yes,
wrong.
exactly.
Oh,
exactly.
that's
Well,
a
actually, so
dark pattern.
I did that application as well. I had one called I always forget the name of it. It was visual. Back then, it was like a way to format the disk. What the heck was it called? Not disk part. Doesn't matter. It was a command line interface. So it was like a graphical front end to this thing back in the days when DOS was still part of Windows. And you would click cancel, and it would say, "Okay, formatting C," and it would go. You know,
Oh, God.
just a
Inducing
freak.
terror.
I always
That's
forget
a
the name of
nightmare.
that. I can't remember that command line utility.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was like a format type thing, but not format.
Was it
I
X
also found
format?
that if I made progress scores go back down, you get people to be really angry.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that's
Right.
you get about 80%.
Oh, there's
back to
nothing
the
like
60.
waiting for a computer to reboot, and then it goes to the second. It actually goes to the BIOS, comes back, and then it says rewinding whatever you just did. And you're like, oh,
Yeah.
come on, like come on.
So Steve makes a little program called In Control that,
Yep.
That's his way of saying never upgrade
Okay.
to Windows 11. I think it changes some registry entries is what it does.
Okay.
So there is a way to say, I
that
don't
makes sense.
want to ever be pestered about this.
Right.
The problem is when I'm looking at this,
Mm-hmm.
he's got a little an in control page. It looks like you're also preventing updates of all kinds,
Oh, jeez.
which would not be.
Yeah,
wait a minute.
automatic
Operating
and
system
wanted updating.
upgrades on your control system. Security updates will be received and installed as usual. Oh, but all feature updates and OS upgrading are under your control. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. So you can say, I want to stay on.
What is he? Some kind of a hippie?
My God, the socialism in action.
Yeah.
I like that. So he offers that for free. It's just a little assembly language tool. I'm sure it just changes a registry entry. So if you knew what the regedit was, you could probably do that.
Yeah.
Well, and probably a bunch of them, actually, because why would you put it in one place?
Oh, yeah. I'm sure it
and
is.
and I bet his most important service is that it auto starts every time you boot up the machine, because every time you actually apply a patch, it's going to reset all those entries
Click.
again.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the problem with a lot of these Windows 11 utilities. The things that try to bring it back to the way it was or change some behavior. Microsoft, they're actively
They'll revert
working
it
to thwart that.
Yeah,
stuff.
they'll revert it.
Yeah.
He does. Yeah, there is a command line way to do what In Control does. He has a command line script you could use. So it's just a register. It is. It's just
have it run it every time you boot.
Yeah,
just have it run it started.
Yeah. It's just a variety of registry entries, exactly as you said.
Right.
And you could do it. I guess you could do it. Man, look at these keys. 6 different registry keys. It's changing so that you won't ever be pestered.
Man, I thought we were going to get rid of the registry, 20 years ago.
Possible.
I really thought we were
Is
heading
there
down
any?
that path.
So I've always said the registry is a horrible hairball of a way to store settings in a binary fashion. Modern operating systems usually use XML files that are human readable, P-lists, things like that.
Well, you get it. So this goes back, I think, to the creation of NT as the anti-Unix, right?
Right.
And Windows used to have these WinINI and SysINI, and
which were text.
which were plain text. Yeah,
Config.sys. Yeah.
But normal people go in there and they start screwing around. And so
except
the
that
registry was
now normal people go into the registry, and when they screw around, they cause instant damage.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Instant, irrevocable, permanent damage.
Yeah,
You're doing brain surgery on yourself.
Yeah.
Like it's not.
Can
clever.
you move the mirror a little to the left? I got
So, and I think also because it's a binary file and it can get very large, it's kind of a hairball, right? And then people, and because a lot of computer users are, let's face it, a lot of us are a little bit OCD. They want to clean it up. They don't want to have old keys lying around, even though it's harmless.
This is I love that this has turned into a self-help chat, but yeah, it's no, right. No, absolutely. Like this, like I used to I've spent how many countless hours have I spent just removing things from a start menu I am never going to look at.
Yep.
Right.
We all do this.
Yeah. I'm tidying up a room I'll never go in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. After a while, with some things you just kind of give up on it after a while. I don't think there's any. These are the people who run CC Cleaner every morning.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Or you used to run disk defrag before you did anything in the morning, just to make sure everything was.
I used to tell people, I said, I understand, I honor your desire to have a clean, tidy registry, but these programs either are going to risk screwing things up because they're too aggressive, or they're going to be so careful that it's useless.
They do nothing.
They do
I would
nothing.
also say, not to turn it into a weird comparison, but Windows is such a hairball and is such a mess that it's in Phoenix, when I lived in Phoenix, Arizona, there was this thing where you could steam clean your engine because there was so
always
much,
a mistake.
dirt.
Always a mistake.
Don't ever do that.
Don't ever do that.
Because now your engine leaks oil all over the place. The grit was what was holding it in the
holding
car.
stuff in.
Yeah, exactly. Don't clean the registry. It's what's holding the thing together.
That's a really good analogy. It's like steam cleaning your engine.
That.
Yeah, you want to have a nice,
do
shiny,
that.
clean
It
engine.
sounds like it's a good idea.
Not a good idea.
Yeah, it looks great. Take a picture of it because it's not going anywhere.
That's a really good analogy.
And the solution ultimately is just build a new machine so that you
start
get
over.
That's the thing.
reassemble from scratch.
Actually, yes. So I will say that, most of the people listening to the show obviously are technical, so this is not a big deal for them. But normal people, understandably, are freaked out by resetting Windows, by, factory resetting it, that kind of thing. And I get it. But, the truth is, that process is actually super reliable now. It works really well. You don't really hear about people borking their machines that way. No. But when people come to me and they say, hey, when I feel like Windows is slowed down or, blah, blah, whatever it is, to me, because I'm always using either a different computer or I'm just blowing computers away all the time. Right. It's like, I don't really experience that. No. And so the solution is probably somewhere in the middle between never doing it and doing it as often as I do it. But, once a year for sure, 6 months. If you're setting your computer up correctly, if you have all your data syncing to the cloud, if you know your applications, you don't have to worry about product keys or whatever. Right. This process is actually not that hard.
painful.
And it doesn't take that long.
like I said, I'm rebuilding a couple of machines, so I'm going to kick some parts loose. And we've got a teenage boy neighbor living next door, and I'm like, "You want these parts? We'll build you another machine. You got to bring me a new case, a fresh power supply, and a set of fans. Like all the spinning hardware needs to be replaced, but the rest is going to be fine."
That's a very cool thing to do.
Yeah.
And are you going to help him learn what it all means?
Yeah, I'll walk him through building the
That's so
machine.
cool. That's
it's an
great
afternoon
thing.
ritual.
Yeah,
Sure.
I like that. And you can do that in Canada.
You can. Risk of litigation low. Yeah. Not a lot of stand your ground up here.
Around here, it might not be but in Canada, sure, you could do that. Yeah. That's really nice. I think that's a great thing to do. And it's it's a great way to get a kid into computing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's often a father-son activity, but not all parents are technical. And so, you got a technical neighbor. That's great.
Yeah. And then he has his own machine. So, I talked to the parents first. It's like,
of course.
Hey, we'd like to, this is a good thing. We're going to go through the rules around this. So I'm like,
excellent.
There you go.
You're doing God's work there, Richard. That's great.
Yeah.
I was one last Mac user in the world. It is God's work.
It. So doing my best. Yeah.
No Linux. That's the deal. You didn't mention it. You kind of buried the lead, I thought. Maybe this was the biggest story of the week. It's only a rumor from Bloomberg and the information that we're going to see ChatGPT 4 in Bing in the next couple of weeks.
Right. I meant to tweet about that. My tweet was going to be, imagine a world in which people actually use Bing every day. It sounds like science fiction, right?
But that's why Google's scared.
Yeah.
Because that's the kind of thing that might move people over to. It's going to make me look at Bing.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah, of course.
I use. I mentioned this before. I use Neva, which is a little startup search engine.
Wasn't it an ex-Google guy?
Yeah, it's former Googlers. Yeah. It's been around for a few years. They do their own spidering. They don't use anybody else's index. And they have, when you do a search, they have a ChatGPT-like agent that will, how Google gives you the knowledge graph, but that's always just like a quote from somewhere, usually Wikipedia. With Neva, I'll give you an example. I'll just do a search for .net. With Neva, it gives you, and I think it's a good little synthesis. It's gonna generate. There it is. It's in the little dots thing, and you tell me if this is.
Okay. It's doing it. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's getting it from
on the fly.
Microsoft and Wikipedia. Yeah, it does it on the fly, and it does footnotes.
Pulling in.
Yeah.
I guess so. I guess my only thing here is what's the complaint about Google? Do people go to Google and say it's not doing what I want?
I'll tell you the complaint. It's crapped up because Google is an ad company, and they're larding up the search results now.
Right.
The first half of the page above the fold is almost all ads.
This is true. I mean, everywhere. Right? I was just searching for something on Amazon today, and I was looking at the top. The stuff that came up at the top. I was like, this is not what I asked for.
Right.
And it was because there were ads. Right.
It's crapped up, and it's what Cory Doctorow calls the insurtification.
Yeah, the insurtification.
I have to say it that way.
I just saw that. Yeah,
I'm doing the good
That's
place.
A good word.
The insurtification.
He did that with the insurtification, as you call it, of TikTok. For example,
but he used as an example. He says it happens to everybody. He uses Amazon as an example. They always, when you're starting something new, you do it for the consumers.
You make
Google's
it free.
A good example.
You make it easy,
and you want to build on, and then you do it for businesses. But the third stage, the insurtification stage, is when you start saying, okay, now we got everybody locked in, businesses and consumers. Now we start taking some money out of this.
And you turn the screws. Yep.
And it happens every time.
Yeah.
And Google, it's happening to Google. It's insurtified. It's just all crapping up. And I think that Google is ripe for takeover at this point, for disintermediation. That somebody's going to come along, and Bing is a good candidate. But here's the problem: Microsoft's also insurtifying because they have the Overture, whatever it is. There's a lot of Bing rewards points. Come on, guys, coupon codes. I guess that's Edge.
If there's anyone that could certificate search better than Google.
Let's talk about how certified Windows has gotten. Right? Like,
well, that
you do a
exactly.
consumer install of Windows, boy, that's a lot of jumpy poppy things.
Yeah.
I just okay. So right before Microsoft, Richard, you missed so much last week.
I'm sorry.
You missed so much.
Oh,
but Microsoft announced
he was in
earnings on
England.
Tuesday.
He had tea with
I
it.
know. I'm just saying. Right, but so we're gonna have to reference a couple of things from last week. So right before Microsoft released their earnings on Tuesday, I wrote an article about this very topic. I keep talking about the slippery slope thing, but it's not just advertising in Windows. It's just the whole direction that it's kind of going for individuals, right? Because you're not paying Microsoft every year, even every 3 years. You're paying for Windows once and then you use it for the duration for the PC. And Microsoft wants to monetize all those people. It's understandable. And what I would like to see is just the ability to pay to not have that in certification.
Sure. It should be a part of M365.
Yep.
You pay
Thank you.
an
Exactly.
extra $3 a month, and your Windows doesn't suck.
That's right. And Microsoft's response to that is, well, that's like an implicit admission that what we're doing is terrible.
We talked about this.
To which
last
I
week,
respond, but you're doing it with ad-free Outlook.
It is terrible. People know it. You're not telling them something they don't know.
Right. Right. However, there is another thing they could do.
Yes.
And the other thing they could do is let individuals buy Windows 11 or Windows 10 Enterprise, right? Which actually solves the problem.
What happened to the signature PC? I thought that was one way to address that, right?
Yeah, that went away because of internal conflicts at Microsoft, basically.
Guess who, right? The ad division.
Right. And I've been running a domain infrastructure in the house, with kids and things like that, so that they knew when they were in trouble, the machine would tell them, please speak to your administrator. And I'm ready. It's just the two of us now. I'm trying to retire all of that. And I'm kind of afraid because I think I've been insulated.
You have totally been.
From a lot of this stuff just because I've always run the enterprise editions of things.
Be afraid, Richard.
You have been walked by the line of people standing outside the door and been allowed to go in.
He's inside the rope. Yep.
Yeah.
And
you just you don't know what it's like out here in the cold. It's not good. It's not good.
I'm gonna go there and I'm gonna be horrified, and then we're gonna flip back to
this is, by the way, why I stopped using Google and started using Neva. Neva's $5 a month. I'm paying not to have ads.
$5 a month, I don't mind. That's
here's
good.
my $60. Thanks.
That's right. We talked about Adobe last week as an example of something that's a lot too much money every month. But there's a lot of services where if it was reasonable, I'm happy to pay for a service. But fundamentally, though, what I would like is just that option. There are many, many examples. Richard just flew and upgraded his, on the flight, and there are the people back in the back of the bus, and there are people in the front of the bus, and they have slightly different experiences. And it's not a surprise that you pay more to get to the front of the bus. This is a system that exists, basically everywhere.
It's what we do at Twit. If you don't want ads in Twit, you pay $7 a month, and you're in Club Twit.
Yeah. Right. Netflix is like this. Spotify is like this.
It's not anti-democratic because we still offer free ads.
It's very much democratic.
We give you the choice. Yeah. And you don't have to get. I don't like. Every time I go to the Financial Times, I just go, oh, I hate that.
I know.
Because I can't get in at all. But if
Bloomberg is very expensive. It's $30 a month, or the information
really
is $30.
$400 a year. Yeah,
it's really expensive.
I buy them both.
To me, those are just unreasonable prices for that kind of a thing.
It chafes me
I
to
can
have
get the
to
Wall
pay
Street
that.
Journal for $40 a year on sale.
Yeah.
How are those publications worth more than the Wall Street Journal?
Yeah. Everybody's trying pricing, but at least we're starting to pay for stuff. There was a long time where we were told the internet's going to be free.
That's right.
It's just that part where you're the product.
Still, a lot of people now
Napster, I miss you so much.
That the internet should be free. Data information wants to be free, says the hacker ethic. And so they don't like the idea that they have to pay for stuff. Yeah. But all this stuff does cost money.
Creator,
you're paying
wanting
somehow.
to get paid for the work that you do is understandable and reasonable.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's certainly a theme on .NET Rocks we're talking about. Even if you're using open source software, we know you are.
Yep.
You should be contributing.
Yes.
And if you can't write the code, just send them a tip once a month. It doesn't take that much. And if everybody did it, all of this stuff is far more
it's incredible. Even like my little book on Lean Pub, I get these emails when people buy the book, and it's like, the normal amounts of money. That every once in a while someone just sends in like a crazy amount of money. And it's like, I wish I knew who that person was.
Yeah.
Like, it's incredible. It's an honor.
And I've been that guy, Paul, and I'll tell you why. You saved my bacon one day, right?
Oh, boy.
At some point, I'm struggling with something, and I read it, and you saved me $200. Like, literally, it's like, I was going to spend the whole day beating on this. I found this thing and fixed it. And I just love being able to go, here's $50, like, because it was worth more than that to me.
Right. Well, that's great. I mean, that's nice. So yes, you're everyone. Everyone is right. You know that
we're all in violent agreement.
we should all be contributing however we can contribute. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, certainly it's an area I'm paying a lot of attention to, but you guys have now got me filled with a sense of dread as I'm about to build a couple of Win 11 machines that are going to be in consumer mode. I'm like,
I can't.
We're going to hate this.
Is there a way I could just zoom into this and watch?
I think we'll have this play out over the show for a few weeks.
Yeah.
I'll be a little contrarian. I don't think it's that bad. I'm really curious what you'll say after you do this, and like, what if you'll say,
what it is?
Well, I can live with it, or boy, this is
it's a creeping horror kind of a thing. It's not like walking into Times Square and be like, oh my God, what is going on here? It's not like that.
It's not like
But
Dancing
it creeps
Elmos.
up
I'm trying to shut down Active Directory in the house. Like, it doesn't need to be here anymore.
Sure.
It literally was a PDC BDC implementation from 2000.
I'm
It's been
impressed.
upgraded steadily.
I'm impressed that you
know.
you were running Active Directory.
Well, I
for
did.
your family.
By the way, I did the same thing,
Yeah.
but I got rid of it many years ago.
Yes.
I mean,
That's hysterical.
many.
And my own Exchange server, so I could look those guys in the eye and say, I
did
feel
it.
your pain.
I feel your pain.
You know?
I hope that you tailored the error messages so that they said something like, "You must contact your administrator.
Yes.
You will see him at dinner."
No, they definitely. There was several great moments like that where it's like, or remotely controlling the machine and just writing in Notepad on the machine. Hi, I'm your laundry. I'm scattered all over the laundry room, and it makes me feel bad.
What is?
And then just don't
is it?
give the controls back until they, it's the laundry
What is
cleaned up.
that inscrutable message copy machines used to give, like
The load letter.
load letter,
Load letter.
Load letter.
or check key manager.
I believe load letter is the reason the movie Office Space exists. PC load. It was PC load letter.
PC load letter. There
Yeah.
you go.
Of course, you think has something to do with a computer, and it doesn't.
No.
It's,
But I realized I trained my daughter so well on the whole, your machine doesn't work when you haven't done something, that when we finally had the dump truck back into the telephone pole outside the house that cut both internet connections at the same time, their answer to come downstairs is say, what did I do wrong?
Oh, you've trained them well.
right.
Did you see the street? There's many things I could fix, and dump truck fade is not one of them.
Dump truck fade. That's a good excuse. I'm sorry, son, but we're suffering from dump truck fade right now.
Well, the number of years I spent, with company data centers trying to give them redundant connections that didn't run down the same pole.
Right,
Where it's like one hit and we're out. Like, just trying to split all that stuff up. There's only so much you can do in your house.
All right, back to Windows. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to distract you. I just thought that was an interesting story, and I know you don't have it here in the notes. Of course, it is just a rumor, but we'll talk about it when it happens.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be a very interesting challenge to Google. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I wonder. I mean, I think obviously there's a lot of hype around AI. I feel like Google is pretty entrenched. I mean,
Well, they say we have it. We just didn't. We don't trust you with it, so we didn't release it. But now that OpenAI has done it, okay, don't worry, we've got stuff even better.
I love that Google had ethics all of a sudden, and now they're like, unleash the hounds.
Yeah, forget that. Jan LeCun, who's in charge of AI at Meta, said there's nothing special about ChatGPT. We've had that for years.
Okay, well, that's
We've had
fun.
that forever.
Okay,
I'm sure he said that to Sundar too, and he's thrilled, right? Like,
Yeah, we've always had that.
apparently they've called Larry and Sergey back in, like it's all hands on deck.
Have they really?
But-
Is that true?
Oh yeah.
Well, they came in. Yeah, they're kind of. Yeah, they're not coming in like full time.
I
don't
think they're going to be much use. Sergey doesn't wear
I don't
shoes
disagree.
anymore, and
Exactly.
yeah,
But I think this is a political thing. Inside of Google,
the office.
don't make me call mommy and dad.
yeah, really.
Yep.
You won't like it.
Wow.
It'll make you.
Well, by
it'll
the
be
way, there's
sad.
some Microsoft kind of did this with Bill Gates a little bit. You know, I mean, there's some precedent.
Bill's half time at Microsoft to this day.
Still?
I've talked to Microsoft people all the time. He reviews product. Every single product quote
that's
goes
cool.
before Bill.
Well, that's
But he's
cool.
not the face of it at all. right? That's the main thing is they've taken away the face part. But I talked to product team guys when they're going before Bill, like it's a 3-month practice because he will shred you.
I think
if you
that's
don't know what
actually
you're talking
awesome.
about. I generally think it makes the product better, and I don't know that anybody else can do it. And somehow he still has this gravity that when he sees that 3 teams are actually building the same thing, he can essentially order a project and say, thou shalt contribute 2 devs, each of you, to this project, and all of you will use it.
He is,
and
he
I don't
doesn't
know
have
if anybody else could do that.
He doesn't have a title or official role. He's no longer on the board.
No, he's an advisor.
Just an advisor. Interesting.
There's a few other interesting advisors floating around out there.
Huh. Where's Ray Ozzie these days?
I thank you for saying that. I was just thinking about Ray Ozzie because, again, last week I think we were talking about, I think it was last week, but this notion that, Satya Nadella gets all this credit for the cloud and everything, but really this started under Steve Ballmer. But really, it did. But it started because of Ray Ozzie, who was then Chief Science Officer, I guess? Chief, is that the right word? No, Chief Software Architect, sorry. And he was the one who pushed Microsoft down this cloud path in the same way that Bill Gates used to write these big internet tidal wave memos and so forth. He wrote the big memo about the cloud. And honestly, in many ways, that might be the most prescient memo ever written at Microsoft.
Yeah.
And that guy was not really around that long.
No, and I don't know that it resonated well with him. He's got a new company called Blues Wireless. It's an IoT company.
Really? Yeah, so, what's he doing?
He's he's one of the founders. So they were in stealth mode for a couple of years. They're up and doing a thing now. They're working closely with AT&T on hardware that will work automatically with AT&T's network. So the idea.
And is this in the Seattle area or where is he?
I don't know where he moved to.
Interesting. Yeah, he's
because he was never a Seattleite, right? Like that was not really a thing for him.
Boston or something. Where I don't even know where it was from.
Yeah.
He was at IBM, created
Northeast.
Lotus Notes, and
yep, that's right.
Well,
and then he recreated it again.
He was at Lotus Notes before IBM bought
before
it. He got pulled in.
Yeah. But his whole thing was kind of cloud collaboration.
The groupware stuff.
Groupware.
Groove. Yeah.
Groove was his thing at Microsoft.
That's right.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to that?
It was very cool.
They turned it into a music service called Groove.
No, they ran out of names. Come on.
Yep, they sure did.
Hey, I want to take a little break. We'll come
Groove.
back. There's more to talk about. Insider build. There's something very exciting happening to Snipping Tools. I know you're gonna love this.
We're gonna spend half an hour on that.
Yeah, that's gonna be great. Earnings. There's still some more stuff to talk about. Richard Campbell's back. Paul Thurrott's here. Windows Weekly continues in a bit. I want to say hello to a brand new sponsor. Had a really great call with them a couple of weeks ago. Miro, M-I-R. Do you know Miro? Miro is super cool. We've started playing with it. I created an account immediately. You could do this too. You can create a free account and see what it is. You're tempted when you first look at it, you say, oh, this is a whiteboard. I get it. It's so much more than a whiteboard. Miro is designed for teams. Teams who have multiple tools they use. You're going from tab to tab, workspace to workspace, tool to tool. And you know what happens? It's the same thing when you walk through a door. You get context shift, ideas fly out. What was why did I launch this? I know with Miro, that doesn't have to happen. You're in one tool. You're doing it all inside. It's a collaborative visual whiteboard. But again, that doesn't say it. It doesn't say it enough. It's so cool. It brings all your great work together, no matter where you are. Whether you're working from home or in a hybrid workspace, everything comes together in one place online. We want to start using Miro for our shows, which I think is going to be really interesting. It could be as simple with Miro as kind of a dream board. Here's some ideas. We're going to put them together in inspiration. It could be a mind map. It could be a Kanban. So you keep track. You're in charge of this. You're responsible for that. Move it over. Miro's infinite collaborative whiteboard gives everybody a space to create, to open up and to do stuff. If you're a product team, you've got a forever space where you can just drag and drop insights and data, never lost. Nothing's ever lost. Nothing's ever forgotten. Miro covers a breadth of use cases, so users can build visual assets. You can present with Miro, present findings. You can run brainstorms with cross-functional teams. You can build out your product vision on a Miro board by brainstorming with sticky notes or comments, live reactions. If you start using Miro and you start using it in your meetings, you'll never do a meeting again without Miro. You've got voting, you've got timers, you've got a way to kind of come to consensus quickly. It transforms these online meetings. Nowadays, we're all hybrid. We've got remote people, we've got in-office people. Miro is a great way to bring those teams together, working together. Miro users report saving up to 80 hours per user per year. It's like, 2 weeks of vacation time extra by streamlining conversations, cutting down meetings, and when you do meet, making those meetings insanely productive. So Miro gives your team the chance to always stay connected. The board's always there. You can always check in anytime you want. Real-time information. You can make integrations with Miro, so it's automatically updated. I'm not surprised. More than 1 million people use Miro every month. Have you used it yet? It's pretty incredible. But it's hard to describe. That's the problem. So here's what I want you to do. Just go to Miro, Miro.com/podcast, Miro.com/podcast. Your first 3 boards for free. Start working better with Miro. You got to do this. Please, once you're on the website, start playing with the different templates. They've got a really wonderful section in the Miro website where people have uploaded their their work, and there's all sorts of crazy cool stuff. But it'll give you a much better idea of why companies like Cisco and Walmart and Volvo and Deloitte and Okta use Miro to get their work done. It's just incredible. I mean, it really is a free-form place you can do whatever you want. And take a look at all the integrations. Take a look at their cases. There's stuff. There was a Harry Potter, I think used by the British government, template from Harry Potter that they were using. It's incredible. It's just incredible. Take a look at it, and there's one that has the Beatles in it. Some very creative people are using Miro to do amazing things. Just look at the Miro-verse, that's what they call it, to explore what people using Miro have done. You can get some great ideas. Here's some icebreakers for meetings. Incredible stuff. Incredible stuff. These are all real templates that people have uploaded in the Miro-verse from their projects. And this is the only way you can really understand. Look at Midnight Sailboat Retrospective. I don't know what it is, but it's the event retro and happy hour. Character mix and match icebreaker. Valentine's Day love. There's a memory game. People doing. Here's the Harry Potter from the UK government. Harry Potter retrospective. This you could have taken with you on your trip, Richard. Miro. Miro.com/podcast. Check it out and get your first 3 boards for free. It's the only way really to understand what you could do with Miro.
I did get to a Broadway play in London while I was there.
Did you go to the West End? What did you see?
I saw Juliet.
Oh,
which is a very meta show where
it's about Romeo and
William
Juliet?
Shakespeare. Yeah, you have William Shakespeare and his wife rewriting the Romeo and Juliet from the point of view of Juliet not being dumb and drinking the poison, but going, why should I die?
Dead? Why should I? Yeah. And even if he were,
even if he is, what about me?
What about? Yeah. Well, that's
it's good fun, and
that's what I do. If I go to New York, I go to a show.
You got to go to a show.
If you go to London, you got to go to the West End. There's amazing theater there.
Yeah, it was a little theater. It was a lot of fun.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a great way to spend some time. Good
jealous. Very jealous. Yeah, I used to do that when I would go on business trips to New York by myself. I would just go to the box office. You'd always get a single ticket.
Right.
Because, people.
Yeah, I think we paid £40 for 4 tickets each. It was.
Yeah, that's nice.
That's a good deal. Because it was day of, right? It's a sort of StubHub effect.
You go to the box office. There's always there were 3 people bought seats, and there's this one. And usually you can get really good seats that way, these single seats, because they want people in them. Anyway,
yeah,
I don't know how this turned into the theater show, but I'm a theater head, so. Windows 11 Insider Preview build 25,290 heads to Dev Channel.
Yeah. I wish I had some interesting news here. Last week, Richard, what you missed was that the only new feature in a build was a Facebook Messenger widget.
Oh, boy.
This week, there were two widgets, two new widgets, I should say. One is for Spotify and one is for Phone Link. So obviously one of those is a third-party app. The other one is the application built into Windows. But this is all the, I think it's Microsoft opened up the capability for third-party developers to create widgets, I think late last year. And we're starting to see that. And yeah, that's not that exciting, is it? This kind of reminds me of the Longhorn sidebar. You know, It was like, we have this other thing. It's
this other thing that whenever I get anywhere near the right side of my screen, stuff pops out and interferes with what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, exactly.
That thing.
Yeah, so now it's on the left, so it's completely different. Yeah, you're going to love that when you get to Windows 11. Well, actually, it's in Windows 10 too. It's called, what's it called? News and something. I don't know.
But you don't get it in the lower left corner, right? You don't.
Yeah, but if you move the start button over to the left, it makes it a button next to the start button, so it's not all the way over. Anyhow, that's more time than that
And
topic
that's as exciting as Windows is getting these days.
Woohoo!
Well, wait to hear the next story. So last month, we learned that Microsoft was going to be adding screen recording functionality to the Snipping Tool, which by my count is the 17th way you can take a screenshot in Windows 11. And they tested it first in the dev channel. So this week they released, this past week I should say, they released a build to the beta. No, actually it's not a new build. I think they've just released it to the beta channel.
Right.
So, yeah, exciting. I don't know how many people need this kind of thing, but I do agree it should be part of Windows. I don't have a problem with it.
I kind of like the idea that we should have a continuous recording of what we're doing on our machines, loop anyway. I mean, the number, because you never have that stuff turned on when something goes wrong.
Right, like a dashboard cam.
Then, and I've been the IT guy where it's like, it just broke. It's not breaking now.
Yep.
Maybe because you
look at the film and you're like, actually, you did it.
Yeah.
You're an idiot.
Clicked here? Like,
What would you record? Would you record all mouse movements, keystrokes, events? It'd be like a big event log, kind of.
I think just a copy of the whole screen, real time, right?
Yeah.
Just what you were doing.
Just keep it going.
Right.
The most recent 60
slow
minutes.
you down like crazy?
Yeah, no, it's got to be invisible, but it's
Sure.
Listen, the CPUs in these machines.
Yeah, we have a lot of headroom.
They're smoking cigarettes and playing poker, right? Like they don't have a lot to do.
Well,
They're just hanging out.
No, it's what was that?
Yeah.
What are those Intel processor vulnerabilities?
Meltdown Inspector.
Thank you. We'll just say it's because of the work we did to fix those two things. That's why it's 5% slower. It has nothing to do with the recording.
Actually, I just saw there was a bug in Discord, which is the chat program we use for Club Twit, that slowed some NVIDIA GPUs, particularly the 3080 and 3090, I think, down 200 megahertz. It was just a bug.
Ooh.
200 megahertz.
Yeah.
Wow.
You're going to party like it's 1999.
I'm working here.
Look for the turbo button. There's got to be a turbo button.
Access 95 is not loading fast enough.
Weird things.
And what you have to do, reboot it to reset it?
No, they have to they have to fix it. And NVIDIA's put out a patch.
That's awesome.
And Discord, I mean, how could you write a user space program that would slow your GPU down? It must be
you're not
doing.
supposed to be able to
I
do
could
that.
do it.
Yeah, I guess. You're doing some sort of weird rendering or something in the background.
Although it's video driver, they're mostly ring zero.
Just push it all onto the CPU. That will do it immediately.
The problem is that a lot of gamers run Discord at the same time as they're gaming. So this was a particular problem.
Oh, I'm sure there were angry, loud noises.
Discord recently started rolling out, Scooter X has this in our chat room, an update that enables AV1 streaming with GeForce RTX 40 series cards. This update appears to have introduced some memory clock issues on some RTX 30 cards. If you have an RTX 40 card, you're fine. Maybe it's just a subtle way of getting people with 3080s to upgrade to 4090s. I don't know.
There is a glut of them. So
yeah, that's ridiculous.
Oh,
Anyway, there is a fix.
Odd
There is a fix for that, but yeah, that's a weird one. Just shows you. But I agree with you. You have enough headroom. You probably have enough drive space. You probably could. I'm sure there's. I know there are tools used in business to do periodic recordings of your screen, so they could see when you're surfing porn on company time.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
I mean, Windows had a screen recorder tool, right? If you were having a problem, you could go back and duplicate it and record it, and then send it to the IT help desk.
Yeah.
And then there was. I remember tools where they would record like a journal, like all the things you did.
Right.
Not so much for troubleshooting or to spy on you, but just kind of, here's what I do. So remember the camera Google put out that you would wear around? It was Gordon Bell's idea way back in the day. His wife, Gwen Bell, he was at DEC for years, famous engineer. He started the Computer History Museum. His wife, Gwen Bell, had Alzheimer's, so he made this. He said the idea is we'll wear this camera around, and you'll have a recording of your whole day, and you'll always know what you did. The only problem is the camera's shooting from your belly button, and it's such a weird angle. We're just not everything
we have a roll of film. Well, it was a digital camera, but we gave a camera to my son when he was a little kid, and he ran around the house and took pictures. And all the pictures was like the kitchen counter from below the counter. Like it was all a picture of my knees.
Right? Yeah, but that's what he sees.
Yeah, that's what the world looked like to him. Yeah.
That's what your dog sees.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a little weird.
You say we talked about earnings last week. Microsoft's quarterly report came out 2 weeks ago, but there is more because other companies now have checked in, including Intel.
Yeah, Intel and AMD. Yeah, so not surprisingly, Intel, which is perhaps overly reliant on the PC industry, experienced some problems in the fourth quarter, as did the PC industry. So their revenues dropped by 32%. Their net earnings, so basically profits, was down 60%. I don't care. People seem to focus on that number a lot. I don't know why, but the revenues to me is the big one. And then full year, their revenues were down 20% year over year.
And you think this is just a reaction to the overbuy during the pandemic? The market's just tapered off again, and you're seeing this is a trailing indicator. Right?
Yeah, this is the correction. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not that big a deal. I immediately started looking for the layoffs and couldn't find any.
Right. Sorry, but yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Then I found one of the insider groups saying, they've cut wages across the board.
Right.
But your run-of-the-mill workers are all taking a 5% hit rather than have a 5% layoff. But they scaled it up as you got more senior. VPs 10%, senior leadership 15%, and the CEO 25%. Now, 25% off of $80 million. Somehow the boys can survive. Like, life is hard.
One less yacht.
Yes, not enough yachts.
But you know what? That's a very interesting response to a problem that a lot of big tech companies are facing, and it's not what everyone else is doing.
No.
We kind of half joked. It wasn't really a joke, but this notion that Satya Nadella, having flown in his private jet to Davos last week, announced some initiative and then laid off a bunch of 10,000 people. That kind of thing, there's a disconnect there. And I feel like this is I don't know what would happen if you polled employees, right?
Yeah. Is this better for morale? And I was in this situation with a company that I had a leadership position in 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
Where we did, one group that I was working with, we did do layoffs. And the other group, the management team took a huge pay cut and everybody took a small pay cut. And by the end of the year, we'd recovered and were able to catch up everybody's wages. Like it worked out. But I thought the morale of the pay cut folks was higher, right? That the language there was, listen, we are not overweight. We don't have, fat to cut. You guys are all valuable.
Right.
And we want to keep the team together so we can do it if we do this. And it's hard to think of Intel that way with that many employees and that gigantic of a company, but that's what this move seems to make. And it's smart that the leadership takes a bigger cut, even though admittedly they have absurd wages.
Right. No, I think it's a good way to do it.
It's symbolic, though, right? I mean, come on.
So I don't know. I mean, we've talked about this over different shows. This kind of weird immaturity in big tech where they over hired during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And now they're correcting it. And I don't understand why either of those things happened, And to me, this is, I think, a better solution. Unless, of course, the real problem is, look, we really do have too many employees. I mean,
yeah, that's the question, and therein lies the real question.
Yeah.
I mean, a 5% cut isn't nothing. And if you think about your regular working engineer in Intel,
right,
whose interest weights just doubled,
yep,
and then also his
right,
wages get hit,
real world, yep.
That's pretty tough. That's
right.
not a small thing. Like, we're going to get pressed on both sides.
I just had an old guy conversation at the gym today about this, about how the price of everything is up, milk, gas, eggs, whatever.
Yeah.
And we're just laughing at the crazy, like, this is what we're talking about now, But these are real world costs for real, people. And yeah, you're right. So 5% cut, and then everything is more expensive. So it's almost like
yeah, you're
better than not
hit
having a
both
job,
ends.
though. Better than not having a
Yes,
job.
the alternative is being laid off in the midst of tens of thousands of layoffs in the tech industry.
Yep. Intel has unique problems, though, because they are also investing enormous sums of money right now in chip fabrication facilities in the United States and in Europe and elsewhere, probably.
Yeah, with a lot of government help too.
Yeah, in the United States, at least. Oh, probably everywhere, actually. But yes, okay, fair enough. But it's still real world dollars for them as well, and it's very risky. And I don't know that there's a lot of faith out in the world that they're going to be able to pull this off.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue they've got to keep those initiatives going because they did make government guarantees. It's like, you give us this money, we will build this thing.
That's right.
Cutting staff would be a mistake. Keeping those people in place, but cutting their wages, you can make that fly, at least from the government side.
Yeah, yeah. And the ongoing problem for Intel, which is something we're going to see again with AMD, and something we saw at Microsoft. Actually, that was the big news in some ways with Microsoft, was them coming out and saying, hey, this current quarter, it's going to be even worse.
Yeah.
Intel said that as well. In fact, they expect to lose money in the current quarter. So in other words, not turn a profit.
Yeah.
They're yeah. They did the quarter ending the last quarter. They posted a loss as well. I should have said $700,000,
which is kind of astonishing on the billions you're talking about.
I know, 14 billion in revenue and 700,000 loss. Yeah.
That's sort of a point where you say, hey, maybe I won't make a payment here and just at least be in the positive.
Isn't there some accounting thing we can do? I suspect that was the result of the best accounting.
Yes.
So
I know how to make it only a $700,000 loss, not a $2 billion loss.
Exactly. So AMD, interestingly, had a much more positive quarter, but there were a couple of asterisks to it. So they had a net income of $21 million and revenues of $5.6 billion. And I always like to compare those numbers because, this is like Burger King and McDonald's, right? So
they're what, a third of the size?
About a third. They're about a third. They're a little bit more at this time. Yeah, 5.6 versus 14 from a revenue perspective. But their net income was down 98%. Like, yikes. Revenues were up though, which is interesting. But that was because of a data center business, and I think I don't have a handle on what the other thing is, but it's some kind of an investment they made. It was some kind of just a money kind of a thing that had nothing to do with operations.
Yeah, so this might be CFO games, moving money around to.
Yeah, but they were upfront about that, and they said, look, revenues are going to be down in this quarter. Compared to the prior quarter a year ago, the same quarter a year ago. So revenues were up 16% for that quarter. Revenues they're expecting this quarter will be down 10%. And then the PC part of their business experienced a bigger percentage loss in Intel's, actually 51%. It fell in revenues down to $903 million. Not even $1 billion business.
No. But these are all trailing indicators. We saw this with the PC sales slumping. It's like this is going to hit all the hardware folks they report in, because people didn't buy stuff.
Yeah, but and then AMD did great in the data center, which I don't care about personally too much. Other than that, it saved the quarter for them in many ways, and that was up 42% by revenue to $1.7 billion.
So what are they doing that they're making good data center sales? Just right pricing?
I think I wouldn't call what AMD is doing like a hybrid architecture exactly, but AMD has been doing that kind of multi-core thing. Maybe it is sort of a hybrid architecture. I feel like they're just
my experience
efficient.
with multi-core and AMD is that their pipelines were shorter.
Yeah.
So it was easy to put more cores on a die. And that was only bad when you were paying by the core for licensing.
Yes.
Like if I was buying SQL Server, I kind of wanted to buy it with an Intel chipset because I used fewer cores to get the same workloads done. Whereas otherwise, they generally have an advantage. More cores that are short, quick, and move through a lot of workloads.
And I think this hybrid architecture is even more important in the data center than it is on computers, frankly. And I think the race right now is to get there in that market as well. So
more unknown workloads. Generally speaking, the shorter pipeline is better.
Yep. Yeah. So we're just treading water here. And then I usually like to, when I do an annual thing on PC sales. I mean, I do a quarterly thing as well, but the big one is annual. So I did that I don't know if that was last week or 2 weeks ago, but
a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago. So I'd like to do the same thing for smartphones. But what happened last year was IDC released their numbers in January, and then Gartner waited until March for some reason. So it's like, okay. So again, this year IDC has come out with their numbers. Gartner has not. I've just decided to look. I'm going to write this up because it may be 2 months, but the smartphone industry is experiencing exactly the same problem that we saw in PCs. They declined by 18% in Q4, and 11% overall for the entire year.
So it's not somebody picking one device over another. It's people.
They're not
fewer
picking
people
devices.
buying stuff.
That's right. It was the lowest annual shipment total since 2013.
Wow.
That's
when it was still an emerging market 5 years into the iPhone.
Right. That time. Right. That date is closer to the release of the iPhone than it is to now.
Yeah.
Which is like hard to even contemplate.
It's amazing, but it is. I watched part of the Samsung announcements this morning, and like. We're out of ideas for phones, right? It's just like this one's got 5 cameras, right? Like they're all slabs of black glass with bumps on them.
That's right.
And you pick your poison. You could spend $1,200 all day long, but will it change anything substantial? I mean, the 200 megapixel camera on the Ultra 23, that's astonishing, but I don't need to see my pores that close up.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a lot.
Right. It's like the CIA license plate photo from space.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, to me, the big thing that could happen in smartphone photos or in just camera lenses would be having the 3 primary lenses be closer to each other in terms of capability. There's a huge gulf there. And then this kind of notion of like periscope telephoto lenses, which could make
3 and 5 times zoom.
Optical zoom be that much better.
You're going to see this in the 23 line where it's mostly 12 megapixel cameras and then one other one. Like there's a narrow angle, there's a wide angle, there's a selfie, and then there's a big camera, and it's either a 50 or a 200.
Yep.
But it's all more than you need, really.
It's probably, right. I mean, I don't know for everybody, but I bet 90-something% of most photos are just taken off the main lens anyway.
Yeah. If we thought about it, we wouldn't be taking them in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. That's the
just
whole
a
point of
reflex.
it. Shoot and click. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So there's that.
Anyway, and in some ways, I'm content to see that in general, like we know what this is? All inflation fighting. This is folks pulling back from spending, maybe to take the inflation off a couple of notches,
right.
And calm governments down because nobody likes an excited government.
Calm them down.
That's true.
Hey,
chill them out.
Speaking of licensing, did you guys, or do you, maybe Richard, you have more of an opinion on this, note the change in licensing from Oracle on Java?
Oh, yeah.
I know. I haven't really paid a whole lot of attention to it. All I know is that Java people are unhappy a lot.
Well, it potentially could cost a lot more, I think.
Yeah.
I didn't
really reading the room, No, I mean, seriously, what's going on in the world that you think this makes sense right now?
Yeah. It's a great time to be stabbing the open source folks in the leg.
Yeah.
Well, I've only had to buy a few Oracle products over the years, and generally I found their licensing model along the lines of, so how much money do you have?
Right.
We'll take it. They literally asked us for financial statements.
Yeah.
And we're like,
wow.
How about no?
Wow.
You know what? There are alternatives that don't involve you.
Right.
So yeah, $1,200 for full bore Java development suite from Oracle today.
Starting
tying-
with Java 11, there'll no longer be free downloads.
Yeah, you have to have a commercial license, I think, to
And
get an update.
that's about the same number as an MSDN premium, right?
That's a lot.
Yeah.
$1,200.
Yeah, and you're paying for, when you get an MSDN premium, you're obviously paying for studio with a bunch of the premium features, not the enterprise features. Not that there's very many of those. And then also, I think it was like 4 tech support calls in your package, or 2.
I think this must be a reflection of what the market for Java is today, right? It's primarily like a server-based back-end kind of a thing now.
This is
It's no
infrastructure
longer-
software, right? This runs banks. This runs, enterprises, and it's all long-term. It's lock-in. There's not a lot of greenfield. In some places, like if you've got a good Java crew, making new apps makes perfect sense. But I don't know that any startups are thinking, hey, the three of us are going to kick off in Java.
Some company, I don't know, some giant software company should make something that's like Java, that has like a programming language like Java and a runtime that's like Java, and then they should open source it. I wonder, I'm surprised no one's done that.
No, it's strange.
There is an open JDK. In fact, that's what I generally use.
.NET,
Yeah.
which is basically,
Yeah.
Open JDK.
Open JDK. But I think that I don't know, I think there's still some proprietary stuff in there.
Well, Microsoft's now making a version of OpenJDK.
Right. And many Linuxes come with OpenJDK.
It's like riding a bike, Richard. Once you've
Well, and I'm just throwing on that old history hat, since I seem to do that a fair bit. Like Microsoft was making a version of Java in the late 90s that was almost too popular. It made Sun Microsystems very nervous as they started optimizing it for Windows. Yep. That was Anders Hallsberg's original job at Microsoft, was building Java tooling.
Yeah, the window, what do they call it? What's called WCF, the framework he created for Windows, for Visual J++.
J++, yeah.
The Windows, what was that called? The Windows something, I don't know. Anyway, it was the predecessor to, obviously.
And then they got the cease and desist. Mm-hmm. There's the story of Brad Silverberg signing that deal with Sun in the first place, is that before the ink was dry, both companies were in violation of the agreement, right? Like it was a very much a forced marriage that nobody could comply with. So it was just a question of, are we going to look the other way? Literally
a den of snakes.
Yeah. And ultimately, not the consent decree, because that was another thing happening about the same time, when the cease and desist happened, they had to purge the JVM from Microsoft. They had to show that they had eliminated it everywhere, that there was none of the code showing anywhere. But that's why C# exists, because in the end they needed a enterprise class object-oriented language, and that was Java. Now that they couldn't have Java, they needed something else. And so,
and that's the risk of doing this, of course. I think maybe what they're saying is, look, everybody's going to use OpenJDK for free. If you want support from Oracle, you're going to have to pay for that, I guess.
And like I said, it looks like the MSDN premium bundle.
Yeah.
It's very similar.
Yeah, that sounds like yeah. And somebody in the chat room saying, and I think this is probably true, that every Java developer he knows uses OpenJDK. Nobody wants to use Oracle's stuff.
No, and they're using Spring or Tomcat. Like, there's a lot of ways to Java.
Let's stay open. Yeah. All right, let me take another break. We are going to continue on with Richard and Paul. I forgot his name, but I think he's still
the other guy. Yeah,
the other guy.
It's okay.
And
does all the writing, that guy.
Yeah, that guy. The guy keeps writing the books and stuff.
Yeah.
Paul's doing a great job, by the way, with hands-on Windows. You're now talking about the different accounts you can create, which I think is really important. You're way ahead of us. You record stuff all at once, but I think we're doing the local accounts and all of that.
This is the Richard Campbell model. This is the thing I always was resentful of with Richard. Like he
20 podcasts a day.
All my shows for March are in the can.
Wow, look at him. No, that's awesome. I love that. So this is my chance to do something like that.
Yeah, well, we appreciate it.
I highly recommend it. You get into a groove. Although I found I can record like 3 .NET Rocks in a day.
Wow,
it's fine.
But aren't you exhausted by the end of that?
Oh yeah, no, you're done. Yeah. But if you do 4, if we have to do 4 for whatever reason,
that 4th one better be damn good.
Well, you got to have the right guest. You got someone who could just fly on their own, right?
Yeah,
it's like talk Win API, go. Right?
I do
that, or it's just gonna be a bunch of fart jokes, like one or the other.
I have shows like that, where I just relax. While
Yeah,
somebody
let
takes the lead.
that great guest rip, and
Right.
and you can your brains are cooked. But years ago we did like 24 hours of .NET Rocks, where we just recorded shows back to back over a weekend.
Yeah.
And it was a dump. I think we made
was nice
36
being young, huh?
shows by the end of that.
Right.
Many of them, all the ones towards the end of each day, not that good.
A little silly, a little punch drunk.
Yeah. And a few of them actually expired.
Oh boy.
Like
That's
the
my
technology
fear.
changed.
That's
Yeah.
why we
You can't
don't want to
far
get
ahead.
too far ahead, because hands on Windows you can, because that's going to stay for a while.
They're only
Plus, if
challenging
something
Windows every
happens,
week.
like we've done this once so far, but something happens where there's an update and it's like, well, let's just record this. We'll slip it into the next. It will be the next show now.
Right.
So you can do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. You're wondering how to get it? You have to be a member of Club Twit. Twit.tv/Club Twit, $7 a month. You get that. You get Hands on Macintosh with Micah. You get the Untitled Linux show. You get all sorts of great benefits and ad-free versions of all of our shows. It's really, I think, a very good way to support what we do. We really appreciate all of our club members. Our show today brought to you by Melissa. Melissa's a leading provider of global data quality, identity verification, and address management solutions. Today, they announced a successful partnership with TomTom. You know the name TomTom. They're a global pioneer in SatNav, satellite navigation for consumer use. Why would Melissa partner with TomTom? Well, this is really cool. By layering TomTom's comprehensive global address data, location data, and country data on top of Melissa's industry-leading data quality, enrichment, and identity verification tools, Melissa has now got a really rich way of taking any address, any contact, and making it this super rich database of information about any client, any customer. They really are the address experts. When you're talking about postal addressing, global postal addressing, multi-language, multi-format support is absolutely vital. Every country's different. Our zip codes are not like your zip codes, Richard. And if you go to Venice, they don't have street numbers. I mean, they have street names. They don't have house numbers. You just have to know, I guess. But TomTom can handle this. They ingest the country data into one global, and this is important, standardized data set while supporting multiple languages. So TomTom handles the various addressing nuances country by country, making Melissa's solution stack efficient, seamless, and truly international, truly global. So now Melissa can increase its global support across, get ready for this, 240 countries and territories. That's pretty impressive. That's basically fully global. Greg Brown, who's the VP of Global Marketing at Melissa, says, by adding TomTom's rooftop precision capabilities to our solutions, Melissa's customers can rest assured their data is not only clean and verified, but also pinpoint accurate and of high value to business operations. It's ensuring that restaurants are found, that packages are delivered to the right place, that on-demand drivers find their passengers, and so much more. You know, poor data quality costs you. And it continues to go bad. It doesn't just, degrade once. It continues to degrade. On average, organizations lose $15 million a year on bad data. Mailings to the wrong address, or contact completely lost, disappears. And of course, the longer this bad data stays in your system, the more losses you accumulate. By leveraging TomTom maps, points of interest, 7-digit postal codes, address points, and a routing API, Melissa is providing you with best-of-breed address engine. It's critical to business needs worldwide. Since 1985, Melissa's been doing this. They've specialized in global intelligence solutions to help organizations unlock accurate data for a more compelling customer view. Melissa, of course, treats your data like it's theirs with kid gloves. They undergo continuous independent security audits because they're committed, of course, to data security and privacy. And, of course, compliance is important for you, as it is for Melissa. They're a SOC 2 compliant, HIPAA compliant, GDPR compliant. So you know your data is in the best hands. You can really trust Melissa. Make sure your customer contact data is up to date. Get started today. 1,000 records clean for free. You could do it on-prem. You could do it with a secure FTP upload and download. You could do it as a SaaS. They have a very good API. You can actually add it to your customer service software or to your mailing software or, what have you, your shopping carts. Check it out, melissa.com/twit. And get started with 1,000 records cleaned for free so you can see how well it works. Melissa, melissa.com/twit. We thank him so much for supporting Windows Weekly, and we thank you for supporting us by going to that address so they know you saw it here, melissa.com/twit.
We send out Run As radio mugs to listeners who write a comment on our show or Facebook or things like that. And I think I tried 3 times to send a mug to a guy named Years.
Oh, yeah.
It's just not going to make it.
happening.
Sorry.
Every year with our Christmas cards, it's funny because I used to get Bill Atkinson was one of the, the key guys in the design of the Macintosh and the Lisa. He was the guy who did Quick Draw. He's like a photo nut, and he had an app for a while called Photo Card, and we would use those as our Christmas card. And Bill, every year, Bill would say, "Could you please get your address data together?" Because he would by hand go through it and fix it all. And he'd say, "I don't want to do this anymore." He finally stopped doing the app, so maybe we take some of the credit for getting him out of that business. It was a lot of work, but boy, they were great Christmas cards. Now we use Melissa, of course, and it's an easy thing. The other thing that happens is you don't want to do this either, Rich, is you mail out multiple mugs to the same person.
Yeah. No, that's definitely happened.
Somewhere there's a postal worker in Africa that has 3 of your mugs and he's just waiting for the next one to come.
Exactly. In Venice, they're all piling up at the Grand Canal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. That's why the cruise ships can't fit in there anymore. All the mugs at the bottom of the canal.
The mugs at the bottom of the canal. All right. Where do we drop off here? Did we talk about smartphone sales? Did we get to that?
Yes, we did.
All right.
Yeah, we're on to, we got some dev stuff.
Let's do some .NET stuff. Yay.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I've been writing this series of short articles that I call Small Bites with a Y because I'm an idiot. And a lot of it's sort of just trying to explain developer topics to people who aren't a developer kind of thing. And this is kind of a pet topic of mine, but I wanted to look at what it meant. Like, what does it mean to create a desktop app with .NET MAUI, right? Which is the successor to Xamarin. So my determination here is that nobody's going to create a desktop app with MAUI, but what you would do is create a cross-platform mobile app and then add some desktop features to it so it was a little more natural or normal on the desktop, right?
The idea is to have as much common code as you can. And MAUI's pretty good at that, but you end up with some, if phone form factor, if tablet form factor, if PC form factor. Yeah,
and there's also some automatic behavior, which I think is kind of nice. So like a couple of the features that will work automatically like that are secondary windows and the menu bar, right? So if you add in a menu bar, it won't appear on mobile automatically. It will appear on Windows, obviously, the Mac. And if you have an iPad with a keyboard attached, interestingly, it will appear there as well.
It notices.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
So these control makers are smart. Like they are saying, here's the automatic renderings for these things.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah. And then, the way .NET MAUI sort of works is that each of those screens that you see is a page, like a content page. And you can optionally have that appear as a floating window if you're running on the desktop. So you don't have to do any conditional code there, too. It's kind of nice. You have like an about box or something. The floating window pops up. You click OK to get rid of it. On mobile, it just goes to that screen. Yeah. And you can navigate using swipes or the built-in navigation, or you have a button, So anyway, I thought that was kind of cool. But I guess the point was simply that .NET MAUI is not really, it's not like a desktop framework, but it will let you take one of the mobile apps that you create with it and tailor it for the desktop, which I think is fine.
Which generally, again, it depends on what you're working on, right? Like it's not like use of WPF and WinForms is disappearing either.
Yeah. Although, you know what? So actually, that's a good point. So one of the interesting things about .NET MAUI, I think, is that it's the easiest way on Windows to create a WinUI 3 app.
Yeah,
right.
Because WinUI 3 is now part of MAUI.
Yeah, it's just native. It's part of it. It's nice. Yeah. I wish there was an easy way to take a legacy WPF app in particular, but WinForms, whatever, but especially WPF, and replace the UI with WinUI, right? And I think there are sort of ways. Actually, Richard, I meant to ask you. You probably, in fact,
what kind of dragon did you want, right? Like you were asking for this.
you have probably talked to someone from Avalonia UI,
Yes,
right?
I have.
I assume. So this is is it open source or is it's open source third-party project to bring a WPF style environment into the 21st century, so to speak, or into the modern world, right? And I don't know if they are WinUI or whatever. I'm not really sure, but that might be another way. That might be an easier way, but I know it's some sort of XAML Islands nonsense,
Yeah.
But it seems to me
a bunch of underlying tricks to make that work.
yeah, it shouldn't be so hard. Like to me, you should be able to create a XAML file that's WinUI 3, create your UI, and then wire it to all those backend things you already have, and then say, okay, this window is going to replace that old window. And I wish there was a way to do that.
Yeah, I think there's an interesting business going on because this is a huge problem for Microsoft in modernizing all these applications. And you have a schism too, because if it's an internal app, Microsoft wants you to make it a Power App.
Yeah.
So one of the points I do on one of my talks is I say, have you looked at the Cognitive Services Form Recognizer? Because it works for paper forms. Like it'll literally make you key value pairs out of a paper form to drop into a XAML document and make, basically generate a form for you. But there's no reason that paper couldn't have been screenshots of an app. Right. So I think we are seeing the shape of tooling to modernize a lot of these applications.
I don't know about Paint, but Notepad in Windows 11 looks like the thing I'm asking for. It's clearly the old app, but the front end has been skinned, and it's beautiful and modern. It hasn't lost any functionality. If anything, it's gained some. The find replace UI is now like this nice floating WinUI style floating window kind of a deal.
Yeah.
And it's the rare example of a modern app that doesn't feel like a Fisher-Price toy.
Yeah.
Where even someone like me who uses Notepad every single day can use this and not feel like I'm being forced to use a toy. Like it feels it is modern, but it is also clearly Notepad. And I would love for there to be more stuff.
And the Windows team did that. So what they're tapping is an interesting question as to how they go about doing that.
Right.
This has been the challenge all along is they surface these new visualization, the material design, those kinds of mindsets. And then it's up to the various dev stacks to decide how they're going to implement them, much less how the customers are really going to use them. Microsoft made a version of WinForms for Core 3.1 in 2019. And it wasn't byte for byte compatible with the old WinForms because the main thing they were addressing, the thing everybody wanted, was being able to have WinForms work on high DPI screens.
I was going to say, yeah, exactly.
That was the problem.
Yeah, UI
and there was
scaling.
no way to just make that go straight across. So you had to rebuild your app. You had to go through some steps, like they just made a certain barrier of entry to all of that to make that capability work. And people were unhappy. Like even though they'd done the thing they really wanted, it's not, they just want it to work. And it's like, it's harder than that. Welcome to real life.
Yep. Yeah, because, WinForms came out in 2001?
Oh, WinForms goes all the way back to Thunderforms in Visual Basic circa 1991, right?
Okay. All right. Well, it's okay. So pre-high DPI, either way.
Yeah, but the high DPI version was 2019. Like that was WinForms for Core 3.1 SDK, where they said, okay, well, Core is still cross-platform, but we have this set of Windows SDKs for UI components, and there's a high DPI tolerant version of WinForms.
Well, this is so like anyway there's a gap between WPF, especially WinForms, but WPF and WinUI, and I wish this bridge could be this gap could be bridged, I should say.
And I'm always not mature, right? I mean, it's been a battle to get it this far. It's a lot of team wrangling they've done. I mean, this is the Xamarin folks, this is the Windows folks, it's the WPF folks, and it's also the WinUI folks. Like, there's a lot of different political maneuvering to get them to all play together. So they're iterating slowly in comparison to a lot of other things they've built. And, when I put my enterprise IT hat on, it's like, tell me why it's not a PWA, right? I don't want to deploy an app to the workstations or even to the phones, really. Just, use the manifest of the PWA, push it that way. I'm in a security context I trust. We get the latest version automatically. Like, it is very hard to argue against that.
Yeah, no, I feel like we kind of talked about this, like for all the people who are asking me, like, well, what's the next, desktop framework? There is no next desktop framework. And if you're looking at desktop class apps, you should be looking at PWA.
Yeah, well, there's an awful lot you can do. There are some edges, without a doubt, and there is the power to quote unquote native apps on phone devices. Without also true, but the price is so high.
Yep.
So, I mean, if Maui could get good enough, I think Flutter's good enough. Like, if you talk about it.
So one of the next articles in this series, I think I'm going to call it declarative programming, although that's a little off, but this notion that you would declare a UI like
it's
an
a declarative
HTML
UI. You're exactly right. Right. Yeah. That's odd, but it also is remarkably good at working across devices.
And I think the fascinating thing about Flutter is, and the thing that's fascinating to me about that is you do that in the programming language, which is Dart, which is sort of the equivalent of C#, not in some markup language like XAML or XML or whatever.
Yeah, and XAML has baggage. It was under opinionated when it was created, and so there's just too many ways to do things, and that's it goes back to 2005, right? It's old.
It's something I really like. I really like XAML. It's kind of a tough thing for me. Like
you get to do what you want for most part.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool
and they are
way to
trying to
do
narrow
this.
the scope. And one would argue that Flutter was created because Dart had to do something. Nobody else was going to.
Okay.
But they did a great job. Like it's enough now. And they started with phones. When we first started talking to them back in the day on .NET Rocks, it was all about phones. And then later they came to Mac and
they
PC.
do everything now. And
they do.
And they're way further along for desktop apps than .NET.
And so it's an interesting point to think in terms of, could Maui be this good in another 2 years? Maybe. I don't know.
They're revving Flutter really fast, though.
They're in a groove. No two ways about it. And it's compelling. It's still a question of.
You must know Tim Sneath, right?
Oh, I do. Yeah, absolutely. And a lovely person and smart as a whip.
Great guy.
Great things at Microsoft, doing great things at Google.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Sorry. And then this doesn't warrant too much discussion, but it was one of those, they don't have this yet, but they just announced a cross-platform media player control for .NET MAUI, so you can have media playing, whether it's audio or video, inside of your app, and it works across all the platforms that .NET MAUI supports, and it's like, duh.
There was third-party stuff for that already.
Yeah.
So
I think it's actually, it might even be based on a third party.
And it's all part to, Maui's young. They're still getting their feet on them. It's going to take them 3 versions. They're kind of at 1.5. Yep,
that's right. So I'm curious what you think about this one, because I saw this number, and then I went to Google and I said, Google, how many developers are there? And Google told me there were about 27 million developers in the world, but GitHub says that they have over 100 million developers on the service now, which is, we actually talked about briefly last week, but it had just happened right as we were recording the show. So since then, I had a chance to kind of look into this. And I know that because I use it this way, GitHub isn't always used by developers. It's also used.
That's the real issue, is why would you call people using GitHub developers?
Yeah. Well, because everyone's a developer, Rich. You didn't know that.
Okay. But I know folks who write books on GitHub.
Well, I do too.
I'm
one of those people. On GitHub. That's right. Yep.
All of most of the best podcast lists are actually
there. You go.
GitHub.
So do you have Do you have a handle on how many developers there are or whatever like that?
Again, it's like, how do you define that number, right? Like, is it studio users versus Eclipse users versus Rider users?
Versus I use GitHub for my code as well as my .NET files and my and various things, but I don't think I would count in the 27 million developers. I'm sure Google doesn't know about me. So I don't, in fact,
and I'm even loath to say professional developer.
Yeah,
like, right. What does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, I write code and I put my code on GitHub. Does that make me a developer? I don't know, but it
makes you a source of information for
I'm
GitHub
one of the 100 million.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, right.
That's right.
No one wants my Lisp code. Trust me, it's safe.
Well, there's not a lot of the whole Copilot thing. We had a great conversation with Mish Manners a while back about there's not a whole lot of quality checks on that. Like it'll spit out code, but it doesn't mean it works. Much less it's secure.
Right. Well, that's just like ChatGPT.
That's right.
It's a massive BS machine.
Speaking of which,
as long as you know nothing about the subject,
right?
ChatGPT
it sounds very reasonable. It's confidently wrong.
Yes. Something I just got an email about this. So I believe this is a third-party company. So if you go to creativedatastudios.com, you will see an add-in for Microsoft Office called Ghostwriter that uses ChatGPT,
Man,
advanced natural language processing and machine learning to help you brainstorm, plan, and create content. And I think it's the create content part, that we're actually concerned about, right? It's almost like they're underplaying that part of it.
but this may be saying.
Yeah, this may be the first add-in for
ChatGPT.
For Word that incorporates ChatGPT.
I doubt this is what Microsoft will end up doing with it, but maybe they will. I feel like this is a little too on the nose, right? Like have it write your stuff. It seems.
I think this is what people expect AI to do for them,
right? Yeah.
And technical people are freaked out by this, and normal people are like, oh my God, thank you.
Believe me, I often whip open ChatGPT to try and write abstracts for shows. Mm-hmm. It's horrifying. Wow.
Yeah, but I think ChatGPT is good at summarizing other stuff. Like if you had 400 pages of stuff and you fed it through ChatGPT, it could maybe. Yeah. I don't know. I think this is not something you should get yet because let's wait and see what Microsoft does.
Sure. I used to perform that service for Steven Sinofsky posts. I would take an 8,000 word post.
Yeah, that's your job.
To 80 words, of actual.
That's
content.
what humans used to do. Now we can, a machine do it.
Yeah, what's he really saying here? It would just be like a puff of air. It would say nothing. There's nothing.
Nothing, but he said it for 20 minutes.
He said the hell out of it. Let me tell you. Yep.
And nothing hit me right in the head.
I'm very interested to see what Microsoft does with it. Is there a timeline for them introducing ChatGPT or whatever it is, GPT-4 into Office?
No, but we always do. This is cheap, but Build is coming up probably in May, and Ignite is coming up probably in November.
Yeah,
and these would be the two big times for them to start talking about that stuff.
And there's clearly a push to put these technologies.
It's a race now.
As possible.
It's an AI race.
That's right.
I don't know if there is a Gates letter. I suspect there isn't, but that's essentially what's going on, right?
Right.
When Gates wrote the Internet Tidal Wave letter, everybody had to do something internet related, even some dumb things. Actually, a lot of dumb things.
Yeah, that's right.
And when he wrote the security letter, everybody had to focus on security, and there was some important stuff done there and some dumb stuff done there. So this, I suspect there is basically a motion saying, make sure these open AI things are surfacing in your products wherever possible, and we're going to see some clever stuff. And
yep, there's going to be a bunch of that. Anywho, here's a peek at what's probably coming to Word in the form of an add-in.
Well, I felt like Word had hit a point where we're now only working on bad features because you get two versions from it, one when you put it in and one when you take it out. Right. There's no more good ideas. It's a word processor. Please stop.
Yeah, I'd like to strip it down. In fact, if it wasn't so much work, I would spend time just getting rid of UI. I
find myself writing way more stuff in VS Code of all kinds now.
Believe me, I've looked into this a lot. Yep, Markdown might be my where am I going to be?
Your new friend.
Where I'm going to land. Well, it's not my new friend, but it's going to be my only writing friend soon, I think. Yeah, I like Markdown.
All right.
You want to Xbox?
Let's Xbox it, baby.
I love it.
All right.
Give us some Xbox.
A lot of Xbox news this week. So I have not written this article yet, but I have an article that's kind of in the process where that I started writing before it was revealed that a lot of those layoffs that happened at Microsoft came out of 343 Industries, a part of Xbox, that the Microsoft Game Studio that is responsible for Halo now. And where my head was at was sort of, in fact, it starts with that moment. You and I, Leo, were watching that game preview, and it was garbage. And I always describe it the same way because it's perfect. I just said, at the time I thought this game looks horrible, but they're going to pull a Wizard of Oz moment where all of a sudden it transforms into this futuristic, awesome graphics, and it never happened. And I thought, what is going on here? And then they delayed it for a year, right after they previewed it. And I knew from that moment that something was horribly wrong with this game. And my feeling is that
it started when Microsoft bought Bungie, which made the original Halo, but then fired everybody.
Well, Bungie wanted to leave. Like Bungie
spun off.
They wanted to go private again.
So they all left.
Basically, but Microsoft said you can leave, but you obviously
leave the IP with us. Yeah,
obviously.
So now you have
Bungie
a game,
proceeded to make,
but no developers.
Yeah. So they created a studio, and I'm sure there were some people from Bungie who stayed because they wanted to keep working on Halo.
Maybe, yeah.
Created this studio called 343.
They've shopped it to different dev teams for years.
It's been kind of a weird...
Halo products was made by the same dev team.
And they had an engine that was a little, apparently, according to the stories, hard to work with.
That's right. So this is not the first time this notion has come up that, should Microsoft take Halo off of their own, let's call it the Halo engine, take it off of this internal thing and put it on something more popular that other people know how to work with, right? Because it's much easier to acquire talent if they know the engine you're working in. Look, you can go back and forth.
But there's a look to Halo that's different.
That's exactly what I was just going to say. That the one thing I will say about Halo Infinite is you bring that thing up, you're like, oh, nice, this is Halo. It's Halo. It's very clearly Halo. But then again, maybe that's not so good, right? I mean, Halo is also this very old-fashioned game franchise. It comes out every 5 years-ish with a new title. The modern Microsoft has done a very good job with other games of keeping them fresh with new content. Sea of Thieves, Gears of War, many other titles. They've done great with that. Minecraft, I mean, is incredible. Halo Infinite got off to such a bad start. Spent the first year spinning wheels trying to just get caught up with what they promised for the initial release. Stumbled all over that. There's all kinds of stuff they're not doing that they promised they would do. Like split screen, for example, and co-op. Kind of upsetting the community. And now basically what they're saying is, actually, we're starting over. We're going to go use the Unreal Engine. We have far fewer employees who are working in this group. I'm sure there'll be some hiring of outside talent as well. And
they'll be able to, because Unreal is number one, really.
But you know what? You don't make a game like this in a year.
No.
This is going to be 3 years at least. I mean, it
depends on how much you're constituting a team and what vision you have. Right?
Yeah, this is Halo Infinite was already such a long process, and it also leaves an open question about what happens to that game. Yeah. I just sort of mentioned that they've done a really good job keeping existing games up to date. Does Halo Infinite just sit there in the water and not get updated that much or at all now because they're working on this new thing?
Well, and it does happen that they go back over old titles because they could just drop the data sets into the new engine once they reach a certain level of maturity.
Right. They could do like a Master Chief collection,
they'll do a collection or something, and pull the games up into the new engine.
Yeah, but that's fine. But that doesn't help the people who actually like that game today, that want to keep playing it and want new maps and want new content and want new whatever, this season thing they have.
If it is not in Microsoft's best interest to make their own engine, because that means
I agree.
They have to work by themselves.
This is the Chromium of game engines.
Yeah.
This is exactly where do you want to spend the money and your resources and time, and it's not creating that. Creating an engine is stupid.
No, and you could argue they contribute to Unreal. They could contribute to Cry. Like there's a few other engines, and whichever one you pick, you're going to help a lot.
Yep,
because that's a lot of firepower.
I just feel like this whole thing has to change. Like I'm not saying like the Call of Duty model is right, because even Call of Duty's not doing the Call of Duty model this year.
No,
but
it's going to be very interesting. It's $100 million to build a tier 1 game now, and 300 to 400 people. And if you're lucky, you get it done in a year and you make the deadline, right? Like it's like making a movie. I mean, it's hard and it's expensive.
It's a Hollywood blockbuster is what it is. Yeah.
But the amount of compute you've got in a 1S or in a PS5, you need that many people to make enough assets to exercise that machine.
To actually make it look any good. Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, why did I buy this $600 machine? Like, make me a game that presses against the edges of the machine.
Yep. I don't know. I'm just...
and that's the thing is like, and there's what, $12 billion titles a year. 9 or 10 of them are Call of Duty version 17, right?
Sure.
Like, because that's safe.
Right.
And then if you're lucky, there's a couple of new titles that are something innovative, typically out of a smaller studio who will immediately be bought by an Activision or an EA or one of them.
Yeah. I mean, a game of this magnitude, though, there aren't that many, and they tend to be, like Sony will have a few of them that are exclusive to Sony.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That whole debate again with Activision acquisition, and should they make Halo exclusive to the Xbox?
This is It's troubling. I feel like they should have made this decision before, and belatedly they're doing the right thing.
But really, the industry's in a corner, right?
Yeah.
The funny thing is, the movie industry got in a corner too, and then they innovated.
Right.
Like if you looked at the technology they used behind The Mandalorian, which, by the way, Unreal Engine, it allowed them to do sophisticated sci-fi movies for dramatically less.
Yep.
I would argue the gaming industry is overdue for that. Like that's something they should be working harder on. Is more scaffolding to allow storytellers to make great-looking games quickly.
Well, the nature of my website is I'm going to hear from every single person who believes that standardizing on anything is bad, and that what we need is more variety. As long as you're willing to wait
and pay $80 or $100 for the game,
right?
Okay, but people don't.
How much though does the engine inform how the game plays, looks, and feels?
We're going to find out, right? I mean, that's the thing. Halo is very distinct.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not. I mean, I honestly, I found it a little tedious over time. I mean, at first it was like, look at this thing, nice. Like this is how I remember Halo. Halo 1, 2, 3. I replayed those games and replayed those. I love those games. And then 4 and 5, I was like, and part of it part of it was storytelling maybe or whatever, but I think a big part of it was the games didn't really evolve graphically or thematically at all. I mean, they were just doing.
According to your story on Thurrott.com, Halo Infinite was developed with an engine that had been written from the ground up for that game, Slipspace.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Because they wanted to be faithful to the franchise, but take advantage of the new console.
I guess if you're writing a custom engine, you could make it look like the old engine. You could, do whatever the old engine did. That's unique.
This is a tough one because what were we just talking about? We were just talking about Java. So one of the issues with Java was, Microsoft eventually realized, aside from all the legal stuff and all the awfulness they were doing, that, and Anders would have said this a million times to different people, like we needed to control this for this to make sense for us, right? And that's why .NET happened and C# and all that kind of stuff. And that's kind of the attitude, I think, with people who support Microsoft making their own game engines, like this thing's special, we need to do this ourselves. And it's like, I feel like game engines are so sophisticated now that they could do anything. And I wouldn't be surprised to discover that an Unreal Engine-based version of Halo will look and feel like Halo.
The other direction to go in is you build an engine that you then license to others. Because that's what ultimately makes it better. It has to be a revenue source, and it can't just be an internal one.
And I've never heard anything about Microsoft wanting or trying to do that, but I can assure you, even if they did,
that comes down to an Adrian Carmack, like an extraordinary mind who could actually lead an initiative to build an engine that an array of game development companies would be willing to use.
Yeah. Microsoft's not, I mean, whatever, it's over. So
it doesn't seem like the right thing to do.
No. Yeah, it's crazy. Now, all that said, I don't know where the blame lies. From the outside, to me, it looks like it's 343's fault. I'm like, if you're going to just do Unreal Engine, here's an idea. Maybe take this away from this team. I don't feel like they've done a great job with this thing. It's been a freaking disaster from day one. But that said, maybe part of that was the length of time it took to develop this engine.
The other thing is we're in a year where everybody's cutting back on things that aren't sure to pay off this year.
Right.
So if you're really going to rebuild a team on a new engine, the chances of you shipping a title by October are zero.
Oh, it's zero. It's 100% zero. Yeah,
do a minimal build out just to keep some engagement, plan for a 2-year run, and sometime the next fiscal hire up.
2 years, I would be impressed. But that's the problem because we still have this game sitting here, and Microsoft's modus operandi and what they promised for this particular game is we will keep this thing updated with new content. Who would want to be on that B team? It's like you're going to make the service pack for the current version of Windows. Well, we move on to the next exciting thing. Yeah. Yay! It's like, am I being punished for something? What is this? Like, no, who would want to do that?
Yeah, there's a group of folks that does, but you only get certain classes of work from them too.
Right. That's right. Anywho, we'll see what happens, but a big part of the cuts at Xbox came out of 343, and there's a bitter part of me that I don't mean to say like good, but when I look at the part of that wasn't working, absolutely was 343.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know what the reason is. Maybe it is the engine. I don't want to say it's the people. I really don't know, but it's really telling. They've also lost a lot of people over the past year. I mean, every couple of months, the person running the studio, someone really high up, they are just sort of falling by the wayside and leaving. And that's telling, because if this thing was going gangbusters, they probably wouldn't be leaving.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, have you got enough vision to really build out a good game org? It's its own set of skills.
I suppose everybody wants to be cross-platform, but wouldn't it be interesting if Microsoft said, we're going to write the best possible game engine for Xbox?
Yeah. Only after they finish the Activision acquisition.
Right. But if you had enough games, well, but I mean, then you develop.
Don't say that now, please.
You develop a group of developers who are proficient in developing games just for your platform.
Yeah. But then I would also think you would license it to others. Like that's how you make a sustainable engine.
Anybody who wants to write a game from Xbox, it's like Visual Basic.
I don't know.
Anybody who wants to write a game for Xbox would do this engine because it's the best. It's the optimized for Xbox engine.
But
it's just going to impact your
sense.
cross-platting, right?
I think Visual Basics made sense in a world in which Windows and the PC were dominant.
Yeah, when it's 90% of the market.
Today, it's heterogeneous. And by the way, Xbox is not in first place; they're in third place in consoles. So, it makes more sense to latch yourself onto a really high quality standard, in this case, Unreal Engine, and make sure that thing runs like gangbusters on your console.
Yeah. And to bring in the best people that know that engine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think it's the way the world is today.
Yeah. If you're leading, you get more choice. You get choices.
That's
like
right.
That, but you're not.
You can do. Yeah. Like Sony maybe could pull that, but even Sony, like, why would you bother? I mean, you want, you're competing with PCs from like a graphical quality standpoint. So, make your thing run Unreal Engine as well as it can, and compare favorably.
And make your visuals distinct so they don't all look like Unreal Engine. I mean, that's the biggest thing is if you use the base set of libraries, then all your games look like Unreal games. If you take the time to build your own stuff, and it's expensive, that's a bunch of work by a bunch of artists to give a distinct look and feel, then it's your game.
Yeah. Yep. Well,
not that I have strong opinions.
It feels like a lot of this was unplanned, that it happened just kind of by chance. And
I think it's also a cascade. Yeah. It's that, capitalism is supposed to be built on the idea of grow, then lean out, right? Have a little recessionary period and lean out. So you're seeing this lean out moment for the first time in 20 years.
Yeah.
It's like, what's working?
It's too bad the way it had to go down, but this is what should have happened for Halo Infinite. I have no idea what they were thinking, creating their own engine. I'm sure there were reasons, but
there's always somebody inside there who really wants to do it, and you don't have a reason to stop them because you're making money. You don't care. It's good enough, right?
Well, that's the thing.
Tightening of the belt helps.
But I bet this game has probably underperformed dramatically.
Sure.
And when you're only putting one out every 5 years-ish or whatever it is, that hurts. That hurts a lot. Yeah. Yep, you expect that to always be a hit.
Yeah.
But they've had a pretty, I don't know, I would say 4, 5, and Infinite, they had a classic trilogy, and then they had a prequel trilogy or whatever. Like it didn't, it's like, not quite.
Yeah, you need a storyteller who's got a bigger narrative around that world.
Yes. Yep.
To give you room to go.
And you got a whole universe there you can take advantage of, just like Star Wars.
Yeah.
Expand out into the world.
No, do a Mandalorian. Like go off the standard characters, play a side story, right?
Yeah, and someone's going to bring up, there were little Halo side games. I know that, like little, but that's
you can do more than that.
No, you can do way
Shift
more than
for Half-Life back in the day,
exactly
right? Like there was so much fun. People love that world. Go have some fun with it.
Exactly.
It's challenging though, because if you're going to start a new game today, it's 3 to 5 years, right? So you have to look ahead. It's so tempting, as you said, Richard, to do something that's already succeeded. Just do Call of Duty 11. Well, but wouldn't it be interesting to try something new and different and kind of?
Yeah, but I think it makes sense for this schedule to do what you're saying. In other words, like Call of Duty 11 is because Call of Duty 10 was last year.
Yeah.
These games are every 3 to 5 years.
So here's an opportunity.
You should be looking at spatial audio and
that's not how finances work. You're expected to make money every year.
Yeah.
Right. And it's even exceptional that gaming industry is allowed to make money every year instead of every quarter.
Right.
Which is now you get back to the Dotas and the World of Warcrafts and stuff that make billions a year.
So this is why you don't really have innovation very often,
Mm-hmm.
Although
I think they need to rethink Halo from top to bottom. It's now they're doing the rendering engine. Do it all. Just rethink the whole thing.
But they're going to just do a Fortnite. They're going to do a battle royale. Yeah, and because that's what's hot right now. But who knows? 3 years from now.
What if you did a World of Warcraft in Halo?
I wouldn't mind that.
So now we've got different planets to go to and different combat scenes and different storylines to explore. That's a lot of content to make, but that's also $30 a month. I mean, logically and definitely.
It's a big risk, big reward because you don't know.
Microsoft just brought Halo to TV, and it didn't really move much of a mountain there, I would say. But Sony has brought, what's it called, The Last of Us?
That's huge.
HBO Max.
People are
huge. It's the biggest thing in the world
about this.
In an entertainment world where we have turned to sequels and Marvel movies, and that's all there is, the HBO has looked to a video game franchise for a story that's actually a really good story, and they didn't change it. It's the story from the game. I mean, one of the goofy things about the Halo TV series is they change things. And if this thing was strong enough to begin with, and I kind of feel like it was.
Now they did. They're changing the ending apparently.
Okay, but by and large, it's there's a lot of dialogue that's straight from the game. Like that's pretty
and
impressive.
They got great characters too. Like,
it's a good high quality story.
Really hard. There's plenty of bad video game movies out there. I would argue the majority of them.
I would 99% of them for sure. Although I did enjoy the first-person perspective of the Doom movie with The Rock. I thought that was humorous.
And you also have cult hits like Resident Evil. Those were not great movies, but there's a group of people who love them. Watch them over and over again.
Yeah, nothing like the game. They should do a Resident Evil movie that's like the game. That would be smart.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Anyway. Okay.
Games with gold.
Most of so this kind of stuff is not particularly exciting anymore. Back in the day, Games with Gold was pretty cool. It was Xbox 360 games at the beginning, then they went forward to Xbox One and went backward to original Xbox. And now we've kind of milked that cow as much as we can. We don't have 4 games each month now. We only have 2. They're newer games. I know. It's just it's just a perk of your subscription. So as I have to say so often, I have never heard of either of these games. For the King, which is described as a strategic RPG, and Guts and Goals, which I saw the name and I was hoping it was Guts and Goats, but it's an arcade soccer game. And we'll just leave it at that. Okay. Better news, if you have a Game Pass subscription, this month is going to be an incredible month for Game Pass. In fact, it's already started. So we had GoldenEye 007, which was that classic N64 title, has already arrived. That arrived early. Age of Empire 2 Definitive Edition came to the console, I think today or yesterday or the other day. It's fairly recently. So that's part of this haul. That's really good. There's a game called Hi-Fi Rush that came out of nowhere, which is like one of the biggest things that's happened on Xbox in a long time. Hot Wheels Unleashed, and a bunch of other stuff. So this is looking like a good month for Xbox Game Pass subscribers if you are one of those guys.
Nice.
I had an opportunity. I don't play games like Age of Empires, but I had the opportunity to do it before it was released, and I declined. And now I'm told it's like this incredible conversion. It's supposed to work really well with a controller. This is a PC title that I don't know when it came out, 15 years ago.
Oh God, I was a huge Age of Empires fanatic.
Yeah,
sure.
Back in the day.
Yeah. So anyway, there's that. We saw some price hikes with consoles in the fall, not in the United States, although that could be coming, I guess. But Microsoft just announced they're raising the price of the Xbox Series X and S in Japan. I don't know what to say about that. It's just the way it is. Okay. So unfortunately, there you go. And then there's some controversy around whether or not Sony is actually having its PlayStation VR 2 shipment forecast. Sony has now said that they are not. But of course Sony would say that, right? So this thing is $550, which costs more than a PlayStation 5, which is kind of crazy. It's supposed to be pretty high quality. The initial forecast was for 2 million units. According to Bloomberg, that has been halved to 1 million units. I don't remember. Was there ever a figure for? I don't remember. Yeah. Okay. Actually, here it is. Yeah. Sony apparently sold 5 million units of the original VR headset, the PlayStation VR for the PS4. that was a console that had sold over 100 million units. The current console is somewhere north of 30, if I remember correctly. So I'm sure it will end up north of 50 when we're done, or even, we'll see how that goes. But $550 for an add-on for a console that already costs, $400, $500, whatever.
And what is the marquee title? Like, what's the game you can only play? Like there, and that is always the problem. Like, you buy your PS5 because you want the latest Final Fantasy, because you want Gran Turismo. Like, you want those definitive games. Yeah.
I don't know that there is a definitive game, but there is actually a pretty decent list of games. Now, I don't know that, and I can't imagine too many of these are VR exclusive.
No, I mean, it's bloody Beat Saber, right? Like, that's
like Gran Turismo 7 is going to be updated so that it works with VR.
So these are adaptations which have pluses and minuses, but we're still looking for the mist for VR.
That's right.
The game is like, you've not played VR, you've not experienced until you play this game.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
And you've got this network effect problem where there's not enough headsets, so nobody's going to spend the money to make a game good enough. So there's not enough headsets.
Right.
I was talking to some friends of mine that are involved in Valve, and they said average sales for a VR title, 100,000. Well, and that doesn't pay the bills. Like, does not pay the bills.
Yeah, like those guys had put out that game, whatever it was called, the Alex, what do you call it? The Alex title.
Yeah, that was an experimental title.
I would love to play that. I'm not going to buy a VR headset to play it. I love Half-Life. You know, I'd give anything to play that. Well, not anything, because I'm not buying a VR headset.
Yeah, not everything. Clearly, there's a line.
Yeah.
Are games, you would think, doing VR versions as they develop? Or is it such a small market they don't even bother doing that?
That seems to be the case, but also that the game behavior is different in VR than is.
Yeah, it's hard to move around in VR. You can't. There's no real good mechanic for that.
You make people nauseous, and the game. My game building friend said, when you're running in Call of Duty, you're running at 30 miles an hour, right? Because otherwise people get bored. And if I do that to you, he talks about the 3-foot experience versus the 3-inch experience. If I do that to you 3 inches, you're hurling.
That was always my issue with when Gears of War first came out. The multiplayer was all low to the ground stuff, and I was like, "What?" It's like I'm running around with a loaded diaper. Like, what is this? Like, this is not. I want to be super soldier. I want to leap over, fences and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's not good.
No, it's not good.
But I feel like we're seeing pullback on VR at all levels.
Yeah,
between the debacle with Meta and the gutting of the HoloLens team.
I know.
Sony's pulling back. Like, I think everybody's taking a look and saying, this isn't going to pay this year, and we're not going to spend this year. So we're just going to dial it back and see if anybody's going to do anything interesting.
That's not the way to create a market.
No.
I still feel like there's room for this. It's not the next big thing. It's not where gaming goes, but it's still this. And maybe with the PS4 and the PSVR, the original one, that was a good indication of what the market is. You sold 100 million consoles, and then 5 million of the VR headsets. So there you go. It's like a 20th, or it's less than a 20th.
And how am I going to spend that kind of money to make that game great? Or I'm just going to do a great adaptation, and it's not great.
Right. Yeah.
VR only title, besides Beat Saber, they're pretty scarce.
And E3 is getting to be more of a desert by the week.
I know it's going to be like the indie game show by the time we're done with it. It's like this is kind of what happened to Comdex, obviously. This used to be it. This was the big show. But as we see so many times with so many companies in other parts of the tech industry, people want to announce things on their own schedules.
Well, and isn't the other argument that they don't have anything to announce? Like, it's not cheap to go to E3. That's another way to say it, too. You don't have a game. What are you doing? Right. So isn't this really admission that none of the big players have a game by June?
Well, Microsoft just did a little game event where they talked about a bunch of upcoming titles. And to me, like, I play games, I like games, but I find these events to be a little tedious. It's just like, trailer after trailer after trailer. You bring out a couple of guys to talk, and then if you're lucky, every couple of years, every 5 years or something, you'll have here's a piece of hardware. I don't. So E3 is supposedly coming back this year. Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft are all not going to be there, according to.
It's a conservative year. right?
Yeah.
Everyone's pulling back. They're going to spend
So
less.
you think if they had a game next year, they might be back?
That's the logical thing.
I don't think they ever come back,
I
honestly.
wonder.
Even
Really?
before the pandemic, they were walking away.
I think it's over.
Microsoft started by...
It's all
they
a
were
question
doing-
of who's got the
they were
audience,
across the
right?
street, remember?
Yeah.
But every one of these
GSC,
companies can have their own event and draw people.
And they do.
And they do.
And they
That's
do.
what happened to Comdex. They didn't need it anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Welcome to the internet.
Yeah.
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 It's all good news, guys. We haven't lost anything.
Let's take a break. And we got the back of the book coming up. We got some brown liquor coming up. We got some good stuff just for you. Stay tuned. Richard Campbell is here from Run As Radio and .NET Rocks. Paul Thurrott, Thurrott.com. Our show today brought to you by Drata. Drata. Is your organization having a little trouble achieving compliance, continuous compliance, especially as you grow and scale? I can't believe so many businesses still, so many enterprises still do manual evidence collection for compliance. That's slow. It's inefficient. It's just not the way to do it. As a leader in cloud compliance software, G2 says this, by the way, leader in cloud compliance software, Drata streamlines your SOC 2, your ISO 27001, your PCI DSS, GDPR, HIPAA, and other compliance frameworks by providing, get ready, 24-hour continuous automated control monitoring. So you focus on scaling securely. You let Drata do the hard work, the heavy lifting. And with a suite of 75 integrations, Drata easily integrates with your tech stack. AWS, Azure, GitHub, Okta, Cloudflare, and more. Countless security professionals from companies including Lemonade, Notion, which we use right now, Bamboo HR, they all have shared how crucial it has been to have Drata as a trusted partner in the compliance process. Drata is personally backed by SVCI. Now, why is that important? Because SVCI is a syndicate of CISO angel investors from some of the world's most influential companies. They obviously see a need for Drata. They said, they're invested in it, and it works. It works. It lets companies see all their controls, easily map them to compliance frameworks to gain immediate insight into overlap. Companies can start building a solid security posture, achieve and maintain compliance, and expand their security assurance efforts. Drata's automated dynamic policy templates support companies new to compliance, help alleviate hours of manual labor. They have an integrated security awareness training program, very important, automated reminders to ensure smooth employee onboarding. They're the only player in the industry to build on a private database architecture. You're going to want that. It means your data can never be accessed by anyone outside your organization. Private's private. All customers the support from Drata is fantastic. All the customers, every one of you, will be backed by a team of compliance experts. You'll have a designated customer success manager. And this is cool. They have a team of former auditors, people who have conducted over 500 audits, who are there for support and counsel and your questions. With consistent meeting cadence, they keep you on track to ensure there are no surprises, no barriers, and you're going to love the pre-audit calls. Drata's pre-audit calls prepare you when those audits begin. You've never felt so taken care of and so ready. With Drata's risk management solution, you can manage end-to-end risk assessment and treatment workflows. You can flag risks, you can score them, then decide whether to accept or mitigate or transfer or avoid them. Drata's mapping appropriate controls to risks, so that simplifies risk management, automates the process, and Drata's Trust Center provides real-time transparency into security and compliance postures with improved sales, security reviews, and better relationships with customers and partners. You want this. Say goodbye to manual evidence collection. Say hello to automated compliance by visiting drata.com/twit. DRATA, drata.com/twit. Bringing automation to compliance at Drata speed. Get a demo and 10% off at Drata, drata.com/twit. We thank them for their support of Windows Weekly and the work Paul and Richard are doing. We thank you for supporting us by going to that address, drata.com/twit. Let's kick off the back of the book with Mr. Paul and his tip of the week.
Yeah, so we talked about Bitwarden and password managers and all that kind of stuff, and I switched. But then I had to make that final step. This is like a multi-step process, right? So you switching, like moving your passwords to a new place is easy. In fact, might be too easy. But then you have to go through the process, right? So you have to set it up in your browser to to autofill. Obviously,
Such
you
a
have
pain.
to turn off that in your browser so it doesn't do it itself. You have to on mobile have to go through an interface. I think I mentioned this before, but one of the interesting things about the iPhone is you can actually have multiple autofill services.
Yeah, I use both Apple's and Bitwarden.
Yeah,
and it works fine. And it just gives you a choice.
Yeah, it works fine.
Yeah.
On Android, you have to pick one. So anyway, I switched everything over to Bitwarden. Okay, and that's been working great. But of course,
our sponsor.
I wanted to make sure over time. Yeah, I wanted to make sure it was good, right? Before I took the
I did
final
the same
step,
thing.
which
I left my passwords on LastPass just in case.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever amount of time went by. And finally I was like, all right, it's time to say goodbye. And I got to tell you, that's a gut punch. You go into your old, whatever it is, if it's in a browser. I had passwords in multiple locations, actually.
Oh, man.
Because I test so much, so I switch around. So I had to go into like Edge and Chrome and Brave.
Clobber them all.
Yeah. And nuke it from space, and that's the thing. You gotta do that. That's the point.
Well, you've got a lot of machines too, so it's like on each machine.
Oh yeah,
you got to go through. Yep. If you did local storage.
Here's the one pitfall I found. I don't know if you've ran into this. I had a lot of shared passwords in LastPass with Lisa and others,
right?
And I thought, well, I don't know what I was thinking. I thought, well, maybe just copied it over and it's in their vault now, and I don't have to worry about it. As soon as I deleted the LastPass vault, Lisa said, where'd all the passwords go? They were being actively shared from LastPass.
Right.
So you probably know about this. Someone asked me about this today. I looked it up. I know they do this, but I know Bitwarden does have password sharing.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Oh, yeah.
I just don't do that, so I didn't.
Yeah. And I had to set it up. You set it up in 2 steps, right? So you do the export from LastPass, which is very disturbing because now you have a CSV file of
that's
all
clear
of
text.
I know, plain text file of everything. I know.
And then I cut it up into shared stuff and personal stuff and loaded them separately.
Oh, interesting.
So to make sure that I had them in the shared vault so that she who must be obeyed had access to them.
Because they have multiple vaults, yeah.
But see, this is the difference. Lisa's still on LastPass.
Right.
Yeah.
So if I could have gotten her to move to Bitwarden, then it wouldn't be as big a problem. I would have done.
Leo, I think as the man of the house, you have to put your foot down and just say,
I'm in
doing
charge,
this.
right? Who wears
that
pants
works for
around
me.
here?
It's gonna be fine. I'm the one with the tinfoil hat on here.
All 3 of us are married. We know.
Yeah.
It's not how it works.
We may talk tough when we're alone together, but the reality is...
Now, this was a couple of cocktail conversation to persuade to say, this is in our best interest. It's going to be
Well, that's the thing. Lisa knows, but it's such a pain.
Yeah.
She also knows, and she has been doing this to her credit, she has to go through all her passwords and change them.
Yeah.
And she's been doing that. She says, I
That's
do about
fine.
10 or 20 a week. I just do it
See,
a
this would
bunch
be a
of
good
the time.
thing to do during baseball season when you can kind of only half pay attention.
You got your beer, you got your hot dog, you got your password manager.
You got your baseball game, you get your
ready
passwords.
to go. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. Also, there's other stuff. I don't use any of this other stuff, but you can use these things to store, credit cards.
I do that too.
Identification and
that's another pitfall just to be aware of. Binary files that are stored in LastPass don't get exported with the export, so you have to
this is a separate thing.
Save them out and then re-import them or create new images. Because I have passports, driver's license, security, social security card, everything's
astonishing.
in there. I use secure notes. I mean, what better way to keep secure notes than in your password manager?
Yeah, also, the big one for me was the authenticator keys. You get that spew of numbers for authenticator keys. You have to rebuild authenticator from scratch. That I put in, and that did import properly.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, that's nice.
I've rebuilt Authenticator from scratch so many times. I
don't want to keep my my TOTPs in the password manager because then if somebody gets my passwords, they also get my secrets.
They have that.
Right, I don't want to do that. So you know what Steve Gibson does, which is hysterical but actually kind of smart. Whenever he gets the QR code, he hits print. And he has all his QR codes printed and in a notebook somewhere.
Really?
Yeah.
Aren't a lot of those temporary?
No. That QR code is the secure. That's the key.
Oh, okay.
That's the 28-digit key that then gets meshed with the time of day to create a TOTP. So that never changes. That's your secret. That's what LastPass or Bitwarden keeps track of.
This is probably semi-obvious too, but after typing in my master password a couple times, I was like, obviously I could protect this with biometrics. Like, what am I doing? So
you have to do that again over and over.
Do
again.
that as well.
Yeah. I quickly moved over to using my FIDO keys for that. I don't want to.
Yeah,
my master password is very long.
Yeah,
the FIDO key is much less painful.
But as long as my password is 31 characters. And I've been typing it in a lot because I
Bitwarden, when you add a password, it's like type in your master password. Like, what were you? What?
Yeah,
like,
it's good.
I appreciate the security, but
yeah, I use a FIDO. A YubiKey for my FIDO.
Yep.
There's still, in order to turn that on, you have to type in your master password. So
yes,
I end up typing it all. That move is a big process. And I'm still angry a little bit at LastPass for forcing us to do this. I feel like had they been...
Well, but then, you know what, though? Sometimes you need that push. And, I mean, you've at least looked at your stuff. I mean, even if you ended up keeping it there, this was a healthy reminder to pay attention.
True.
Because I think we're
when you go to delete, it does ask you, like, why are you leaving? And one of the options is... Because you've completely screwed up your security.
Because you screwed the fruits. Right.
You tell me
why
I'm
because
leaving.
we completely effed up? Yes, it was.
That's why.
Okay.
Oh,
we understand.
Got it.
It's been literally the most popular topic on the last 6 weeks of our shows.
One of the answers was just spite. Why are you closing your account? Spite.
Yeah.
So yesterday we were talking on Security Now about Bitwarden. Again, Bitwarden's a sponsor. But it seems to be kind of a lot of people have kind of centered on that. One password's very good. There's plenty of other good passwords.
and Bitwarden are the two.
Yeah, they're very comparable.
Routinely you hear,
But because Bitwarden's open source, somebody did a pull request because they're all using PBKDF2, which is a hardening system to hash your password, to salt and hash it. And in some cases, not enough iterations because modern GPU machines are very fast and can actually do these calculations pretty quickly. All it is a speed bump. But there is a better way to do it, which is memory hard technologies like scrypt or Argon 2. Dashlane uses Argon 2 in a kind of interesting, maybe not the best implementation. But because you can issue a pull request to Bitwarden, people have written now scrypt and Argon 2 plugins. And we were talking yesterday, one of the guys who did this said he'd been working with Bitwarden, and they both agreed that rather than confuse people with two different password hardening technologies, they were going to sit back on scrypt and implement Argon 2. And so he said in the next iteration, the next version of Bitwarden, next time you get an update, you will have the choice of key hardening technologies. You could continue to use PBKDF2. There's a standards organization that requires that. I can't remember the name of them, and that's why it's still around. But you'll be able to choose Argon 2, and certainly when that happens, we'll make a big noise about it. But that's really great. Yeah. That's really great. There is a setting in Bitwarden already that lets you choose the derivative function, and now you can choose. You'll soon be able to choose Argon 2, and that will be the thing to do. And then, I feel like with a long, good master password, two-factor authentication, a good key derivative function, you're probably, even if the vaults get lost, you're okay, I think.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to find out, Leo.
Yeah, well, you got to figure bad guys are hammering on LastPass, 1Password, Bitwarden, RoboForm, all of them saying, let's see if we can get this because this worked out so well on LastPass.
Right.
And, there's a lot of social engineering going on and so forth.
I feel pretty good about it.
I turned my PBKDF2 iterations to the max, which is 2 million.
Yeah.
And it's not appreciably slower. It's fine. So I guess that's what I'd recommend for now. And then Argon 2 down the road. But yeah, I think you're doing the right thing. You did it after 2 weeks. It took me a few months to get rid of it.
Well, it might have been 3 weeks or more. I don't remember. Maybe I'm misremembering.
I just figured, I know I'm going to log in somewhere.
Yep. Oh, no. It's the same thing, positive. And across mobile, too. I'm really concerned about mobile autofill and apps and stuff like that. Like, I need this to work, you know. Because there's nothing, I can't type a normal sentence on my phone. How am I going to type a password into this thing?
Oh, God.
So anyway, yeah, I wanted to make sure it worked. So
when I had the two side by side until I did all the things. I went to the Ghost place. I went abroad. Like I made sure that every machine context I was functional. And then I'm like, okay, you can go now.
And yet with all that, I discovered, I just killed all my shared passwords.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Lisa. So now I have to,
not good.
I can't share them with her because she's on a bet warden, so I have to text them to her. So
There you go.
we're getting there. No, in fact, the company's moving to Bitwarden, so I think it's just a matter of time before
It'll be an enterprise bit warden.
we're going to do enterprise Bitwarden. Yeah, we were enterprise last pass, and that's because now we got to do all the same things for the enterprise.
For sure.
Right. Yikes.
For the same reasons.
Yep. Paul's book, The Field Guide to Windows 11, selling like hotcakes.
Well, it's selling like cold cakes, but I mentioned another book that I'm working on. So in 2019, and then I took a break, and then again in 2021, I guess. Yeah, probably. I wrote what is sort of a technical history of Windows, right? Which I stupidly called Programming Windows on the Site, which I can't call as a book, but I wanted to turn this into a book. So I sort of, as I would, we were talking about OCD and whatnot, I became kind of obsessed to see, like, how long is this thing, right? So just the text. And originally I was going to do, like, chunks of the book and kind of put it on LeanPub and see what it looked like. And then finally I was like, no, I'm just going to blow through this and just see what's the text look like, And just the text, just text, is like 675 pages in PDF form. However, there are several chapters that are just basically short coding chapters, those sort of coding examples, like hello world type applications, so across multiple languages and frameworks and whatever. And I was like, I wonder if there's I bet some people wouldn't care about that at all, right? Like, what does that look like? And so I think I'm going to put originally I was like, do I do 2 versions or... And I think I'm going to put that stuff in the back of the book. But just without that stuff, it's still over 600 pages long. And I have to go back and add this photos and screenshots and all kinds of other stuff. So it's a pretty substantial book, And so I'm going to try.
It's great.
Still trying to figure out a name. I think I'm probably just going to call it Windows Everywhere, which is now an ironic name. And
But it's history. It's the history of Windows programming. Is that it, really?
Yeah. Well, it's the history of Windows, but with sort of from the perspective of an app developer, because like Windows is this thing. I want to write an app that runs, like what's going on today, and what are your choices, and like why do those things happen? Like how Windows changed because of things that were happening out in the the industry, or whatever. Like OOP was a huge thing in the the 1990s, and then it wasn't, and then components, and then. .NET obviously was a huge thing, and then it wasn't, and for Windows anyway. So it's just kind of an all. Parts of it are just straight up history. I mean, I just whatever, and then parts of it are very specifically. Java is a big deal at one point, and like we just talked about, and I don't know. It's kind of an interesting
great idea for a book. I love this. Mm-hmm. I read all of the articles on the premiumthurrott.com, but I still want the book.
Yeah, but I got to do all kinds. There's all this. I want my wife's going to help edit it, and she doesn't know anything about any of this stuff. So she's already said like you need to have some kind of
a technical reviewer,
list of terms and I went to like a code name list because there's a lot of code names in it, and
big glossary.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff. So anyway, I just wanted to. We talked about this last week, I think, and since then I'm like, screw it. I'm just going to blow through this. I'm going to convert it all to Markdown. And just see what it looks like, and do some light editing. Yeah,
there's a great site. You might need this. There's a great site I go to called Rosetta Code. Are you familiar with that? No. RosettaCode.org. It talks about commonly programmed stuff, and then it shows it side by side in different languages.
Oh, that's funny. Okay.
So they call.
So I did a lot. Yeah, I mean, I did some of this.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah. So it's let's see, here's just I don't know, here's 100 doors, which is a coding problem. Here's the problem, and then it just shows you how you would do that. There's 360 assembly.
Here it is in Quick Basic.
Python 4 DOS,
6502 assembly.
I love it.
Jeez. 6502.
It's actually really useful as I move around from language to language, and I'm going, well, how do I do? What's the map command? And
all right, only you guys would appreciate this. So the thing I did that I think was the coolest thing I did in writing code, sort of, was I was writing those Notepad applications, and I wrote the first one in Visual Basic because I had some background in that, and before I learned C#. And I needed to print, and I couldn't figure it out. And I'm like, I wonder if Charles Petzold wrote anything about this. And sure enough, actually in a C# book, he wrote a basic Notepad app, and he implemented printing. So I took that code and I converted it to Visual Basic, and there were a couple little niggling things, whatever, and it worked, and I got printing working. That's great. And then later on, I did a C# version of it, and I took my code from Visual Basic and I converted it back to C#. And then I later compared it to what he wrote originally, and it was pretty damn close.
Wow.
And so it was like this game of telephone tag, except like at the end, it was like, I got the message right.
That's
like,
great.
It was pretty good.
That's really fun.
I thought that was kind of cool. Like,
Yeah.
I was pretty happy about that.
Coding's fun.
Anyway.
Yeah, I like it.
Okay. Anyway, sorry. I didn't mean to waste too much time on that. But
Let's move on to the next segment, which is the app pick of the week. Who's doing that for us today?
Rich is going to do this one.
All right, Rich.
I stumbled onto a website recently, just trying to read better news. You know, I subscribe. I subscribe to Reuters. I subscribe to Associate Press because they seem to have the rawest news.
Right.
But ground.news is this site where they're pulling from everywhere, so you can see all the variations on a given story, how all the different major media groups have written about that story. And to me, it's been fascinating just to realize where my own biases lie, what I'm reading, what I'm not reading. And so it presses against all of that. And so I'm still getting deeper into it. It's also interesting to see where stories are only covered by more liberal.
Yeah, there's a little
media
graph
sources,
on every story to show who covers it more. That's interesting.
Yeah. And so it's just been a mechanism where I'm trying to read more broadly and see that sort of where the biases live.
I like
that the top level menu for me, I don't know if it's like home, my feed, local, Tom Brady. Wait, what?
It's the big story of the week. Yeah. And then Tyree Nichols, and then Valentine's Day.
I'm sorry.
I guess this must change all the time. But this is a good example. You know, a Fed raises interest rates by 25 basis points. You know, and some news sources would say in the smallest hike since March, and some would say as inflation continues to roar through the economy, and it's really I think that's fascinating.
Winter storm threatens 100 million Americans.
Yeah, 10% of America under flood watch. I think this is
so. And normally I would run around and grab them from different places, but here they've got them all in one spot.
How much does it cost?
$10 for a year.
Oh, that's nothing. Okay.
For the
that's for
pro.
Basic.
They've got there's like $100 a year for the full meal deal with all the goodies.
Wow.
But even then, you're talking less than $10 a month. Right?
Yeah. This sounds really interesting, and it really is unbiased because sometimes I go to these sites and they're biased.
They show you where they're pulling sources from and how and the different ranking services they use for that. So they're trying to sit fairly neutral in that
story.
Space.
Microsoft, Nintendo, and Sony are reportedly all skipping E3 is 100% left.
Really? Nobody on the right's talking about
and
that.
Your stupid tech rumors.
Darn video games.
You make me sick.
All right. Hey, good tip. Ground.news.
Oh, that's funny.
Really good tip.
It's been great.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Paul Thurrott. No, I guess we're still doing brown liquor.
Yeah.
Let's do some.
I figured it was Canadian turn, so I wanted to go to one of my favorites, one of the ones that's always in my cupboard, which is Crown Royal.
Oh yeah. Now this is interesting to me. Because Canadian whiskey is, how would you characterize it compared to, say, Scotch, Irish, or bourbon?
Yeah. And can you generalize it in any way?
You can't. I mean, different distilleries do different things. In the case of Crown, they make a bunch of different variations. But their core mash bill is more or less the same. It's primarily corn then typically rye. They have a few exceptions, and a little bit of barley, which is, not that different from a bourbon mash bill. It's pretty close, although you can't call it bourbon because it's not in America. It came from a company called Seagram's, which was started in Canada and ultimately acquired by larger conglomerates over time that eventually landed all in Diageo, because Diageo owns everything these days. But it's called Crown Royal because their original edition from 1939 was made specifically for the Royal Tour into Canada, which was not Queen Elizabeth II anyway. It was King George VI and his wife, Queen Elizabeth.
Her dad,
wow. Her dad back in the day.
This is the one that comes in the purple velvet bag.
The little purple bag, which some people really don't like. Like that bothers some folks.
That's a great place to put your D&D dice.
Oh, yeah. No, those bags are super useful, right?
That's hysterical.
It's made in a place called Gimli, Manitoba. And Gimli, Manitoba is really only famous for two things. One is Crown, one is Crown, and the other is the Gimli glider.
Which is...
Okay.
Back in 1983, a 767 did not load enough fuel, and nobody noticed. And in mid-flight, they ran out of gas.
We're going to Manitoba, everybody.
and the pilot was able to dead stick it down on a drag track that was in use.
Whoa.
Yikes.
No loss of life, but that
impressive.
was one of these crazy things. And the real reason it's in Gimli is for the same reason that bourbon is made in Frankfurt and Bardstown and Lawrenceburg, which is that their water table sits in limestone. And limestone makes very soft water, and that's what you need when you're going to make booze. You need water with as little minerals in it as possible, and so that they make it in Gimli because they got the right water. And the sort of claim to fame for Crown Royal was that back in 2016, it won Best Whiskey in the World for their Northern Rye.
Huh.
Oh.
And wiped it out of the market. You couldn't find it anywhere.
Yep.
I managed to get a bottle, and it was very good. I don't know why it won, records, but it's very tasty whiskey. It's they don't use pot stills; they use only column stills. It's a very efficient way to go, but there's a whole argument in whiskey making about pot stills having a higher reflux level, and at some point I'll do a whole dissertation on still designs. But column stills are good for making very high distillations. If you want to go up to 90% or something, they're great for that. You have to manage them to do lower distillations. But now all they use is column stills, and they get all these great flavors out of it. They have gone a little nuts in the past.
Yeah, I'm not sure
years.
I'd get peach or salted caramel flavored.
This is a little goofy, but we actually have some of the apple, which we use for cocktails.
Yeah. No, in the same way that you would do a flavored vodka, you can do a flavored whiskey. But,
so I always, because you see the ads for this, so I just assume, it's, mass market, mass produced whiskey, but it's not.
And
it's pretty good.
It is.
It is.
But it's reasonably priced.
Right. That's right.
And it's mostly corn. So, all the flavors coming from the rye. But my, go-to, highball drink would be Crown with ginger ale.
Yeah. There you
You
go.
don't feel bad mixing it. If you got a fancier whiskey, you got to drink it by itself. And sometimes it's not good on a summer day. You want a big glass with some ice and a little whiskey in it. You could have gone a gin and tonic, or you could do a Crown ginger.
There you go.
I was watching last night a very well-known documentary called The War Room, which is about the 1992 presidential campaign, Clinton and Bush the First. And it really features...
This is really about James Carville.
It's really about James Carville. It really features James Carville and George Stephanopoulos. But at one point, as they get close to Election Day, they want to celebrate. And somebody, and I didn't notice this the first time because I didn't know you, Richard, but somebody pulls out a bottle of Abelura Budna.
Are you really in 1992?
In 1992, and Carville knows. Carville knows because they say sniff it, and he said, "I ain't sniffing this. I'm drinking it." He goes out and he gets a glass. Yeah. I think he knows it's a really good whiskey. And I looked at that. And I thought,
that's beautiful.
Wow, I know. There's a little insight on that thanks to you, Richard. So that's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool.
So, I mean, it is a simpler whiskey. One of the things they do, because they're not stuck with the bourbon rules, is they do age in sherry and used bourbon casks and things like
Which
that.
Which is fun.
More fun.
How about their cognac aged? Would that be a good choice, the XO?
Different kind of barreling. I've not really tried it.
Okay.
Generally, if I want cognac, I drink cognac.
Drink cognac. Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, if we get an opportunity to do a whiskey tasting, often with folks who really like whiskey, I'll slip a cognac into the middle of it because you probably can tell.
Interesting.
Really?
You know, the difference between grain alcohol aged in wood versus fruit alcohol aged in
grapes,
wood is small.
Yeah, interesting.
Right? Yeah.
I have a Louis XV bottle. We drank all the cognac out of it, but I'm trying to think of what
you should.
Yeah, we should. But the bottle's beautiful. I want to put something else in it. So maybe I'll get some XO and put that in there.
And one of these days, I'll tell the story of the whiskeys or the cognacs of Moldova, the Transnistrian region. It's mostly all bought by the Russians because it's very good, and they have beautiful wines and they have beautiful cognacs. And the only way to get them is to go there, and I have on occasion.
Nice,
nice.
Moldova. Wow,
Moldova. I don't know that I go there right now. They're right beside Ukraine. Like when you're driving on the highway in Moldova, there are signs that say "This way to Odessa," and you're like, "I am very far east."
Wow. My friends, we have concluded this gripping edition of Windows Weekly. So glad to have you back, Richard. Appreciate it.
Great to be back.
You'll find Richard at Run As Radio and .NET Rocks, 2 great podcasts on the internet. Paul Thurrott is at thurrott.com. You should be a premium member there. It really is a great way to support Paul and get great extra content. And, of course, his book, The Field Guide to Windows 11, including The Field Guide to Windows 10, is available at leanpub.com. When do you think you're going to get the new one out?
So I'm going to do it in stages. I think I'll just do like the text first. It would be, because it's like a publish as you go kind of a thing. And I'll go through and edit it. I'm going to add content to it too. There's a lot of stuff I didn't cover.
Oh, good.
So I'm going to, as soon as this coming week, the first version,
It's a labor of love, I know.
Yeah.
This is a subject you like to write about, and I can't wait to read about. So we'll look forward to it. We do Windows Weekly every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. That would be 1900 UTC. If you want to watch us live, there's a live stream at twit.tv/live, audio or video. You can choose. If you're watching live, listen live at irc.twit.tv, or chat live, I should say. You can also chat in our Club Twit Discord, where we are now talking about brown liquors.
Which I have to say, I'm a lot more engaged in.
Yeah, you got us started, and now that's all we can talk about. The Discord is available to members of Club Twit. $7 a month gets you in. You get a lot more, of course, than just the Discord, but that's a good part of the fun. After the fact, on-demand versions of the show are available at the website twit.tv or on YouTube. There's a YouTube version. Of course, you can subscribe, and that's probably the best way to get it automatically the minute it's available. As they say, wherever finer podcasts are aggregated, syndicated, and stored for your delight and download. Paul, Richard, have a great week. We'll see you next time on Windows Weekly. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I am Ant Pruitt, and I am the host of Hands On Photography here on Twit TV. I know you got yourself a fancy smartphone, you got yourself a fancy camera, but your pictures are still lacking. Can't quite figure out what the heck shutter speed means? Watch my show. I got you covered. Want to know more about just the ISO and exposure triangle in general? Yeah, I got you covered. Or if you got all of that down, you want to get into lighting, making things look better by changing the lights around you. I got you covered on that too. So check us out each and every Thursday here on the network. Go to twit.tv/hop and subscribe today.